Number that they've kind of been pointing us to at this point is $191 billion in unemployment insurance fraud, $158 billion in PPP, remember the Paycheck Protection Program from the early days of the pandemic in the CARES Act. So between those two types of fraud related to COVID relief, the total's right around $350 billion, which sounds like a huge amount, but that's nothing compared to what some estimates suggest it could be, because that's what our estimates are based on what they know. What they are suspicious of is that there's all sorts of fraud that happened that we are not aware of and that we haven't cracked down on. And it could total something like $1 trillion, which is 20% of all of the COVID relief. So, a huge portion of all of that relief went to fraudulent causes, essentially.
I know there have been some cases that prosecutors are working on around the country, charging people with COVID fraud, essentially. But what else is being done? Is Congress trying to track down kind of the total amount of fraud? Are they trying to find more of it? What steps are being taken?
Yeah, so the biggest development over the last couple of weeks have been coming from two branches. The first is President Biden, who said the watchdogs are back, that he's going to crack down on the crooks who stole all of this relief money. House Republicans here on Capitol Hill say that President Biden hasn't been doing enough. And so they're holding their own hearings and investigating where all of this money went. And so, yes, that is the goal, is to ultimately track down, where all of it went and hopefully help us from getting into this type of situation again with future programs similar to this one.
What kind of fraud are we talking about? What are some of the most maybe unusual examples or the biggest examples that you have found?
Yeah, so in one case, there's a man who was accused of, he created this MBE Capital Partners LLC, and then was supposed to be lending out the money, but they're either saying he wasn't lending the money or he was taking a cut of that money to the tune of $70 million. And then some other examples are to do with the unemployment benefits, up to $30 million in some cases, where people were filing false claims for these enhanced benefits. And so, those are the extreme examples. But even if you just Google COVID fraud, you'll see examples that are much smaller than those in the millions of dollars, just people who were applying for these enhanced benefits through somebody else's name, or multiple people's names that they were falsifying to get the benefits. And it could be, tens of thousands of dollars all the way up to, tens of millions of dollars.
Are they optimistic, meaning, Congress and prosecutors, optimistic of getting at least some of these billions back that were stolen?
Well, by some counts, they've already gotten more than 1,000 people either, in plea deals, or they have been found guilty and convicted of these crimes. So that's progress, but it's a small portion of, the amount of money we're talking about. I think it's going to be hard to get all of this money back, especially if it's $1 trillion that we're talking about. But I think it's best for them to be forward looking and say, what can we learn from the mistakes we made in the past, even if we can't get this taxpayer money back this time around?
Congress started approving COVID relief bills the same month the World Health Organization declared a pandemic.
The main process, the thought process at that stage, was just get the money out the door.
Fox News senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram.
The economy is going to be in shambles. You're going to have people on the street. You're going to have people out of jobs. You're going to have probably the worst economic depression since the 1920s. So just get the money out the door. And remember that they did this in 2 or 3 waves. There was a very small amount of money that was approved, mostly in the health realm, in very early March of 2020. Then about 2 or 3 weeks later, we realized just how bad this was, and the world started to shut down. So they got this next tranche of money out the door, which was big. And then they had to come back and reload the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP. Remember how it popular that was. That was basically just saving, firms from laying off jobs. And that's where a lot of this fraud seems to have stemmed from. The idea that you had people who were saying, okay, I had X business, and some of it was very small, de minimis, small amounts of money that they were, fraudulently bilking the government out of. In other cases, you had people go and buy luxury homes, luxury sports cars. And so that first, the first, few waves of money through 2020, that was all done on a bipartisan basis. So get to 2021, this is March, and the Democrats are then in control of the House and Senate and have a Democrat in the White House. And then they passed a $2 trillion COVID bill on a partisan basis. I mean, this is the biggest amount of money that the federal government has ever shoved out the door at once. And so it should probably come as no surprise that you're going to have some of the highest levels of fraud.
Right. I mean, if you're talking about the total amount of COVID relief passed in both the Trump and Biden administrations, I mean, it's trillions of dollars.
Yeah, it's about $5.5 trillion, give or take.
Is there a focus on one administration or the other, or what was passed when, or are they taking in Congress a broad look at all of the COVID relief and all of the fraud, no matter when it happened?
Well, this is what the administration and some in Congress are trying to do, but mostly on the Republican side. Republicans are trying to kind of do a little bit of sleight of hand here, saying, OK, there's fraud out there. We're having this big conversation about raising the debt ceiling right now. So what can we claw back from people, or what's unspent out there? And can we use that toward deficit reduction? Well, OK, fine. Let's say that there is several $100 billion in fraud out there and they're able to get all of it back. They need to cut about $7 trillion in spending. So on the high water mark, there's, $400 or $500 billion in fraud. You have to do that about 14 times to get to your $7 trillion. So this might help a little bit. But when they talk about trying to deal with the national debt and trying to raise the debt ceiling, which is why this conversation has been merged, that's not going to get you very far, just getting, COVID money back. And that's something that Republicans, frankly, from a policy standpoint, are trying to hang their hat on.
What can be done about fraud going forward? Are there specific proposals yet in Congress to address the issue so this doesn't happen again?
Well, this came up at a House hearing the other day where you had the head of the Governmental Accountability Office, Gene Dodaro, testify. And he was talking about just the metrics that they were using. It's hard to keep track of it because you had so many people being eligible for this. It's very hard to track. And the problem with that COVID bill or the COVID bills in 2020 is you have to go back to the mindset. We were in crisis. I mean, and crisis of the highest order, mind you. And so people weren't too hot worrying about strings being attached and saying, how do you decide who gets what? I mean, one of the concerns was that if we don't get this out the door fast, the economy is going to collapse. If you got it, you thought that might be a death sentence. So they weren't too worried about putting strings on this. It was just efficiency, getting the money out the door as quickly as possible. Now, you could have another need for something else that isn't as big a crisis as COVID, and they could, try to put these strictures in there. But, this is what's interesting in following legislation for many years, Lisa, is that legislation is written, and it's written in a very concrete form, but there's always people who are attorneys or people who are affected by the law industry or businesses, and they figure out a way to either use the law to their advantage or get around it. I will say this. There is probably far better accounting now of dealing with, just how federal money is spent, and we spend more of it now, and we have a, $31.5 trillion debt right now. So, yeah, it's very hard, especially when you're dealing with these gigantic dollar figures.
Just one other question about the kind of the bigger picture in Congress right now. Are they concerned about COVID fraud, or is it more something that can be used right now in this bigger debate about spending and the debt limit?
I think that there's two things going on. I do think that members are a little more concerned about COVID fraud because there's probably not going to be, barring anything else happen, another big COVID bill. But I think the problem when you look at this is that Republicans now in the majority in the House need an issue. And they know they can't cut $7 trillion. So that's why Republicans are honing in on this, because this is something they can attack. And also, it's a good foil because, Republicans ostensibly, small government, supposedly want to spend less money, although we can argue about some of the, the history with that, frankly, with Republican presidents and Republican Congresses. But this is a way for them to say, yes, we're against what the administration did. They probably would have less of an issue, the Republicans would have, had the Democrats not passed their own $2.1 trillion COVID bill in March of 2021. Because then that was all the Democrats. The Democrats had a majority in the House, majority in the Senate. President Biden was new on the scene, and they were able to do it. And so they would have less of an argument now. But this is, Republicans in the House trying to find something that they can, make into an issue, number one. I do think that there is some genuine concern about that. But it's also, we're deep enough past the pandemic now, the worst parts of the pandemic, that people can go back and say, yeah, maybe we should study some of this.
Chad Pergram, Fox News senior congressional correspondent. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and newstalkstl.com.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE. 855-51-BIBLE.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-251-8381 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-251-8381. That's 800-251-8381. What do you have to lose? Call 800-251-8381. That's 800-251-8381.
Columbo and Katie.
Got a busy Wednesday coming your way. We'll talk to the insider's insider of local politics, Rodney Boyd, at 2:20, and we'll open up Close's cabinet with Mark Close and Skip Weber at 3:05.
Weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL.
Hey folks, Tim Jones here. Excited to tell you about one of our newest clients. I've been a customer of them for years, Professional Irrigation Systems. If you're tired of dragging hoses around your yard to keep your grass alive every summer, now's the time to make your life easier. Residential irrigation installs in one day, custom designed for your property. They will enhance your curb appeal. They've also got landscape lightings, makes the architecture of your home stand out, making all your neighbors envious. Fertilization packages as well for all your lawn care needs and great financing options. ProIrrigation.com. 636-692-4441, proirrigation.com.
Hey, it's Vic, and I'm here with Kathy Connor at Connor Roofing. Kathy, what makes Connor Roofing different?
Hey, Vic. I'm glad that you asked. I think that what really sets Connor Roofing apart is our relationship with our customers. It's very important to us to develop that trust with the homeowner. This is what has allowed us to serve our friends and our neighbors in the St. Louis area for 30 years. Whether we are doing a roof or a gutter repair or even a full replacement, you can count on Connor for quality service and workmanship.
Thanks, Kathy. To find out more, visit them at connorroofing.com. That's CONNER roofing.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Senator Talent, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Something has to be done about this administration ruling by decree. You know, the president just issues a decree that the student loans are forgiven. He issues a decree that the immigration laws don't exist and people can come in.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL.
iHelp is the immigrant home English learning program here in St. Louis that helps empower immigrant families by providing individualized in-home English language education and tools for the effective navigation of our community. iHelp connects volunteer teachers with adult immigrant and refugee learners in our community to develop English and life skills. To learn more or to volunteer as a tutor, visit ihelpstl.org. That's ihelpstl.org.
News, analysis, opinion.
What China did was completely unacceptable and a real threat to American sovereignty.
We are a nation now that has abandoned sovereignty. We do not know the origin of any of these objects. This is News Talk STL.
Shooting down a balloon.
What's gone on the last 10 days has been nothing short of craziness.
It's a violation of national law. It's our airspace.
The southern border is no longer enforced. Look at how China could fly a spy balloon over our country. What's next?
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL and newstalkstl.com.
Benjamin Hall is detailing his ground-level view on the atrocities of war. Saved, a war reporter's mission to make it home. Pre-order today at foxnewsbooks.com or wherever books are sold. Now, a look at what's happening from the Fox News Rundown.
It's Wednesday, February 15th. This is the Fox News Rundown. President Biden visits Latham, Maryland today to talk about the economy. The Congressional Budget Office will be out with its economic health report detailing when exactly the U.S. could default on its financial obligations. The acting head of the FAA faces questions today over the computer outage that forced a nationwide ground stop. And sentencing on tap today for the 19-year-old gunman who carried out a deadly mass shooting in Buffalo. I'm Sue Guzman on the Fox News Rundown.
This is the Fox News Rundown.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and newstalkstl.com. Free speech is alive and well in America.
Sometimes it's hard to know what's real and what isn't.
Right here.
The country is heading in the wrong direction under this president.
We're suffering shortages. America's running out of everything.
News Talk STL. News, analysis, opinion.
Freedom isn't just a word. It should be a way of life for all Missourians. Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a state where you're free from excessive taxes, regulations, and corporate handouts, and free to send your children to the school of your choice? That's why we at the Show Me Institute put together our 2023 Missouri Blueprint, a roadmap on how the state can progress to a bright future. The blueprint covers policy ideas from taxes to government transparency, from education to health care, and more. Our vision is for Missouri to be a place where entrepreneurs can pursue their dreams. Parents are free to direct the education of their children, and a growing economy provides opportunities for all. Critical to achieving this vision is a government that understands the value of freedom in the lives and future of our people. Check out our 2023 Missouri Blueprint, moving Missouri forward at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Hey, it's Vic. Everyone here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth in our business during the first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Southern Armory, Rhino Shield, Steph's Pizza, and the Walner team that have become one of our many advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. We have a wide variety of affordable advertising options. And thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
If you believe Brandon and the supply chain issues are still in crisis, or even if you don't, hurry into Southern Armory, your Second Amendment headquarters, for the best selection of firearms, suppressors, holsters, ammunition, pepper spray, and knives. Browse through our constantly changing inventory, order something special, or have us repair or modify that firearm that you've been putting off. Try our firearms training simulator. See the demo video on our website. Come into Southern Armory, 9901 Watson Road, 1 mile east of 270 and 44, and southernarmory.com. That's southernarmory.com.
This is News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, and we're proud to be the official winter weather source for News Talk STL. The First Alert Weather Team is working hard to keep you ahead of the big weather changes and help you plan your day. So stay connected this winter with Channel 4 and News Talk STL.
Bill O'Reilly here, and I'm warming up. Stand by for the O'Reilly Update Morning Edition. But first, If you are a timeshare owner, you're probably upset that your yearly dues continue to increase. Lone Star Transfer guarantees the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and done in a specific time frame. They're the only company you can trust, having helped more than 18,000 owners legally and permanently get out. So please call Lone Star Transfer 855-551-7066 or visit LoneStarTransfer.com. On this Wednesday, as many of you know, I was at the Super Bowl, and Carrie Lake, who was recently defeated for the Arizona governor's job, attended as well. But she did not stand for the song Lift Every Voice and Sing. Written in 1900 by NAACP Chief James Weldon Johnson, the song is considered by some to be the Black national anthem, but it has not been designated that. It's just a song. Cheryl Lee Ralph performed it about 25 minutes before kickoff, and I did stand. Most in the crowd were also up, but not all. There is no protocol to stand during the song. It's an individual decision, just like America the Beautiful, which was sung after Miss Ralph left the field. Carrie Lake and some other conservatives believe there should be only one national anthem and that the Lift Up song is divisive. They are, of course, entitled to that opinion and should not be defamed as racist, as some progressives are doing. The usual vicious stuff is smeared all over the net. I see it this way. 70% of NFL players are African American, so the song is a signal of respect for them. Easy one for me. Respect, empathy, and context are important in a civil society. 10 minutes before the game started, country singer Chris Stapleton sang a terrific rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner. Everyone in the stadium stood. Respect for the country was on display, an important moment in a divided nation. Back after this. No question, there is a concerted effort to intimidate and silence conservative thinkers and replace our God-given individual liberty with big government controls. AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, is the leading conservative advocacy and benefits organization in America. AMAC gives you access to exclusive benefits and all kinds of great content. Please stand with AMAC at amac.us. That's amac.us. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Winds will ease overnight tonight, not as windy tomorrow, and one more mild day. Low 46, that's our normal high for the day, and a high of 63 degrees, partly to mostly sunny skies. And then we'll see some rain Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Just morning rain Thursday, it'll dry in the afternoon, but it's going to get colder and windy from 40s in the morning, falling into the 30s in the afternoon, and stronger winds on Thursday as well. It's going to be a chilly day. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Welcome home to St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Democrats do what they do.
We choose truth over facts.
News, analysis, and opinion.
A lot of Republicans, their dream is to cut Social Security, Medicare. It's your dream, but I'm going to, my veto pen, make it a nightmare.
President Biden
has to stop lying.
That's called politics.
Hunter's laptop.
Censored by Twitter.
Knowingly and willingly. This is the investigation part. Later comes the arrest part.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. Having your first cup of coffee? Mike's on his third. This is Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
It is official. We now have a two-person race for the Republican nomination for president in 2024. Nikki Haley making it official on Tuesday. What will she need to do to be really competitive, particularly against Donald Trump, the only other officially declared candidate? We'll talk about that throughout the morning. Interesting conversation and a free event that's coming up in St. Charles tomorrow. And it has to do, yes, with baseball because this is St. Louis, but also about freedom and free markets and how that can overcome even the worst of our country. Dr. Mark Shug is going to be making that presentation at Lindenwood University tomorrow. Learn more at hammondinstitute.org. It's a lunchtime event, but he joined us on Tuesday's program to kind of give us a preview. It's a really, really cool take on one of America's great stories, and that, of course, is Jackie Robinson breaking into the major leagues. Here's what the professor had to say.
Was it just Branch Rickey? Was it just Jackie Robinson? Or what role, if any, did the markets, the free market, have to play in this? What do you mean by that?
Well, good morning, Mike, and glad to be talking to some baseball fans. The St. Louis has their spring training down here in Florida where I am. They're down at Jupiter, and they always bring great fans. The St. Louis fans are just so terrific. So we enjoy that every spring when a lot of St. Louis folks come down to our part of the state. Well, yes, the Jackie Robinson story is a very interesting story. As I'm sure most people know, racial discrimination was extremely widespread in the 1940s, had been since the Jim Crow laws were passed in the 1890s. The Supreme Court ruled that segregation was illegal in 1954 in Brown versus Board of Education, but very few things changed up until the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and 1965, which makes this a really interesting story. Why did Major League Baseball, desegregate way ahead of the Civil Rights movement? Yes, Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson were courageous. There's just, no doubt about that in terms of their choice to to do the integration, to sign Jackie to play first in 1946 up in Montreal, and then he was signed to the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. So the way we look at this is we look at, incentives are really important. Competition was really important in this decision, and actually. This is another example of voluntary trade. These are voluntary actors making these choices. So I'll just prattle on for one more second here. Imagine that you're an owner in Major League Baseball. You've got a Major League Baseball team. There's great talent right around the corner. You can see them. You can taste them, right? That talent wants to work for you and as eager as you are to win. And some club owners, it wasn't just Branch Rickey, wanted to hire the best players regardless of their race. But, of course, they had an agreement amongst themselves to only hire black players. So then we kind of point to competition. People, they have to crank their minds back to the 1940s, a time before television. And people were hungry to see baseball. Well, you had these semi-pros. There were all kinds of semi-pro leagues from New York to California. Television wasn't accessible yet, so people wanted to go see these teams. And there was a integrated team. You have a hard time believing this. 1935 in Bismarck, North Dakota, which is probably 20 degrees below today. They had a half white and half African-American team. And their all-star pitcher was a guy named, who do you think it was?
I actually know the answer to it, but guys, do you know?
Satchel Paige? No? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Satchel Paige.
Satchel Paige. Okay.
Yeah, when he showed up.
Okay.
Well, there's all kinds of great stories just around that. So there's a lot of competition, and people could see these integrated teams playing. But the biggest and then there were the competition from the Negro Leagues. They were huge. So again, everyone could see it. The fans filled up the stadiums, so you could see that. But the biggest competition of all was in New York City. So you guys, how many Major League Baseball teams were there in 1947 in New York City?
You had the Giants. You had the Yankees.
Yep.
Mets were not around yet at that point. And in Brooklyn, you had the Dodgers. Am I missing anybody?
Right. No, you got three teams competing with each other to win and to put people in the stands, right? And the Brooklyn Dodgers had barely missed. The Cardinals beat them by 2 games in 1946. So can you feel the competition coming, right? And so Branch Rickey is looking at the situation where he is, and he decides, okay, they did a thorough scouting of the Negro Leagues, and they came up with a short list, and Robinson came to the top of the list. And so they talked to Robinson, about what the guardrails are going to be on this. So in economics terms, we say voluntary trade creates wealth. So they voluntarily agreed. So they somehow believed that the benefits of this exchange were worth the cost, because there really were risks. The biggest risk to the owners was probably the fear of boycotts, strikes. Maybe white fans aren't going to show up to see an integrated team play. And so, there are really potential costs. Almost none of them came to fruition. And the huge crowds came out. As soon as Robinson was playing in Montreal, they knew people were showing up to see him. And then when he signs with the Dodgers in 47, they win the pennant in 1949, 1952, 1953, and 1955, and 1956. And in 1955, they win the World Series. And at that time, by my count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players on the team were African American, meaning as soon as Rickey saw the success he had with Jackie, he immediately signed Roy Campanella, Don Newcomb, several other really Joe Black, Junior Gilliam, several other really well-known players. And I'll just round out the story. Not only did it turn out that white fans wanted to see great players on the field, and African American fans wanted to see great players on the field. So the teams that desegregated first were rewarded by having an increase in their attendance and an increase in their wins. So it's a pretty hopeful story about how markets wind up producing good outcomes, even if it's not necessarily the intention of the players. I mean, you could just say that all Robinson and Rickey wanted to do was get a winning team. And of course, there is more to the story. I mean, they knew what they were doing here. But let's just say all they want to do is make money and get the glory of winning. But in order to do that, they had to make some decisions, and the results are, the desegregation of Major League Baseball.
Mark, this is Paul Kurtman. I've got a question about what the crowds looked like before desegregation. Were there white people showing up at the Negro League games to watch their games, or were there black people showing up at the games put on by all white players? Was there any difference in the crowd?
About the Negro Leagues, I think they were almost exclusively African American. Now, there certainly were white fans and certainly white scouts that would show up at those games. But it was primarily an African American event. In terms of Major League Baseball, African Americans could attend, but they were segregated in a separate section.
Yeah, real quick. And by the way, the event is February 16th, this Thursday, starting at 11 a.m. More information at hammondinstitute.org. A friend of mine, you may have heard of him, Bob Kendrick, over at the Negro Leagues Museum. He argues that the breaking of the color barrier with Jackie Robinson was actually one of the foundations that really pushed the civil rights movement forward. So, you asked the question, why did it happen before the civil rights movement? Bob argues that because the markets spoke and Jackie Robinson broke that the civil rights movement was able to happen at that time. Do you have any thoughts on that, or is there any information or information one way or the other?
No, I think that's just an excellent point. And that's really part of the point of this whole thing, is that when markets discriminate against the most talented people, they hurt themselves, right? They actually, it's a self-destructive act. And to broadcast that, no, we hire the most talented people. That's what free markets do. And it's a very liberating kind of thought. So it's not capitalism is argued to be a problem here. No, it's not capitalism. It's the lack of capitalism. What held African Americans back was not capitalism, not economic freedom. It was the lack of economic freedom that held them back. And so that's why we should be embracing the basics of the marketplace rather than trying to describe it in terms that no economist would accept. Slavery, they say, is a market institution. Are you kidding me? Slavery was built on coercion. This whole Jackie Robinson story is built on voluntary actors making decisions in their own self-interest. What African Americans were denied was the ability to act in their own self-interest because they were held back left and right with bad schools, Jim Crow laws, desegregation in the North and the South, but especially in the South.
Your news roundup starts in just about 3 minutes and 52 seconds right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
It's Joe Pags. Proud to be part of the News Talk STL lineup. Every weeknight from 7 to 10, we'll get together to talk about what's going on. News, analysis, opinion. You won't hear anything like it in St. Louis. The Joe Pags Show, every weeknight at 7 on News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Hey guys, it's Anna from Talkative. I am so excited to have finally found a coffee that doesn't leave me feeling jittery or overstimulated, and that's Pure Cure. Pure Cure is different from your average coffee company. They don't use artificial flavorings to mask a low-quality coffee. Instead, they have unique artisan roasts that showcase the full flavor of their coffee beans. I particularly love their signature blend, which is a take on amaretto, and you should check them out too. That's Pure Cure, PURCUR, coffee.com.
Columbo and Katie.
In a call with reporters, White House officials maintained the president's commitment to cooperating with the Justice Department and the special counsel's investigation, but refused to answer when asked whether Biden would sit for an interview as part of that probe. It's kind of like Meatloaf. I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that.
I'm sorry, I'm still on the video of Meatloaf. That was an awesome video.
Tony Columbo, Katie Fitzpatrick. Weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL.
Hi, I'm Jen Wallner.
And I'm Rodney Wallner with the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway.
Hey, Rodney, how do you sell your home for top dollar?
That's easy. Call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
What if I want a flexible commission rate?
Call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
When's the best time to sell your home?
Right now. Call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
For all your real estate needs, call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
That's 314-810-SOLD.
Have you been floored? Not until you've gone to Michael's Flooring Outlet. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Save money and get quality at Michael's. Plus, your installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Our country is being attacked.
Live and local.
The fact that there are lines. Not received any updates on whether or not there was an uptick in the sale of Doritos.
This is News Talk STL. We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL. Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Okay, in my opinion, he's right about national security, but I think he's wrong about something else. Senator Josh Hawley thinks the federal government should be your co-parent when it comes to social media. Actually, there's probably a lot of people who disagree with me on that, so I'm really interested in having that discussion. 314-912-1019. I'm Mike Ferguson. Stel Ponticus is here, at least for the moment. You going to make it?
I'm sort of here, yeah.
You got the coffee down the windpipe.
Yeah. Sorry, went down the wrong pipe.
We have all done it. Oh, that sucks. All right. Also, Washington University and their medical establishment tell Missouri's Attorney General that they insist on continuing to abuse vulnerable children. This is beyond disgusting, but I've got the update for you. And Nikki Haley makes it official. We all knew that she was running, but her presidential campaign is now officially underway. So in a little bit, I'm just going to ask the question, would you consider her for your vote? What are her strengths? What are her weaknesses? What does her presence in that race actually mean? All right. Let's see here. Let's get around a few of the other things just with some updates here. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, he, of course, is the Republican out of Kentucky. He's requesting documents from Hunter Biden's lawyers. Remember the whole Hunter Biden thing? Yeah, they're still investigating that as part of the overall investigation into the entire Biden family's financial affairs. He was on Hannity last night talking about that.
There are two things every American's going to realize at the conclusion of our investigation, and that's number one, that multiple members of the Biden family were involved in the influence peddling schemes. And number two, most of these big deals were initiated during Joe Biden's term as vice president.
And, of course, the president still insists that he knew nothing about any of Hunter Biden's business dealings. Totally believable. I'm on board with it still. The president knew nothing about his son's dealings, even though he was involved in the conversations.
Oh, I believe every word out of his mouth.
Totally.
You're
so,
right. Yep.
Too hard on him. All right.
Yeah, we're too hard.
Oh, jeez.
He's an old guy. Take it easy on him.
Yeah, actually, at this point, he might not know anything about it because he might have forgotten it all.
That could be.
Yeah, he and Dianne Feinstein. All right, we're learning more about the man accused of killing 3 people and injuring 5 others at Michigan State University. This happened overnight at Michigan State. Jeff Nasso from Fox News has the story.
Records show 43-year-old Anthony Dwayne McCrae with at least one run-in with the law. He was arrested in Lansing in 2019, pled guilty to possession of a loaded firearm, and as part of a plea deal, was sentenced to probation. He's said to have killed himself after Monday's deadly rampage.
We still are in the process of putting together the pieces to try to understand what happened and why it may have happened.
MSU Deputy Police Chief Chris Rosman, McCrae's family members also describing him as mentally ill who lived a life of seclusion. We're told police in Lansing were also called for a welfare check for McCrae just days before the mass shooting. That is now part of the ongoing investigation. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Yeah, what they're going to find is just failure after failure after failure with this. But the bottom line is that when mentally ill people and or evil people make up their mind to attack, they're going to attack. What it comes down to is how much are we going to have our defenses available to us? But monstrous people do monstrous things, and that's what happened in this case. Obviously, this is just unbelievably tragic. And also the plea deal, and he was let off with another charge against him by a pretty left-wing prosecutor. So this is eventually what happens when you have pro-criminal policies. And St. Louis, take note, because we have that here as well. But I will give credit where credit is due in one case here. In St. Louis, a murder conviction was vacated on Tuesday, and a man who spent 28 years in prison is now free. Now, we get a big question now that's going to be asked. We're going to talk about this starting around 6:05 or so. Here's what happened. Lamar Johnson was convicted in 1995 of a murder that happened in 1994 of a guy named Marcus Boyd, who was shot to death during a drug deal gone bad. Now, since the conviction, somebody else has actually confessed to the crime. The witnesses who testified against Johnson have now recanted their stories. So after years of wrangling on this, the circuit attorney, Kimberly Gardner's office, the Innocence Project, they all got through to the courts enough to where the judge vacated. Now, vacated means that the conviction is set aside. In normal circumstances, that would often mean a new trial. That's not what that's going to mean here. The state has done basically everything up to admitting that he's innocent in this particular case. Now, it's not that he doesn't have his own history on things, but he didn't do this crime. So the question that we're going to talk about at 6:05 still, and I'm really curious what people think, is he now owed compensation by the state? I mean, we're talking financial compensation for 28 years behind bars. I think it's an interesting question.
A valid question.
Because, because that means us taxpayers.
Yeah.
Do we, through state government, owe this guy something because his freedom was taken away for 28 years for a crime that
he never committed.
Yeah, every shred of evidence that we have right now, well, not every shred, but the overwhelming majority of evidence that we have right now says he didn't do it. He was doing his own, drug deals and stuff, so it's not like this guy was a choir boy, but he didn't do this crime, and that's what matters in this particular case. So be thinking about that. Okay, the moral cesspit that is Washington University and their medical establishment just refuse to do the right thing. In a letter to Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey yesterday, the institution rejected his request for a moratorium on hormonal and surgical procedures on confused children with either just some kind of mental illness or just general confusion or gender dysphoria. The university says they are adding oversight to their transgender clinic, so I guess we're supposed to feel somewhat better about their continued abuse of children.
Oversight doesn't cover it as far as I'm concerned. No,
absolutely. This is gross. This is evil. But the state of Missouri legislature is right now, this week, talking about a law that is very similar to the one that was just passed in South Dakota and some other states that would simply ban any of this for anyone under 18 years old. And at 7:05, probably the best-known so-called detransitioner, a young lady who started this and went through this process, had the surgical procedures, and then realized what was happening and stopped after it was too late in some areas. And she's now traveling the country trying to warn other people, other families, other young people about the dangers of this. And we're going to talk to Chloe Cole at 7:05. She was actually just featured on Fox News the other day as well, her story. It's really, really heartbreaking. Okay, let's see here. Final note here. A little bit of good news. The Blues picked up their second win in a row last night. Yeah. Jordan Binnington does what Jordan Binnington does. He made 34 saves in the win. Final score was 6-2 over the Florida Panthers at Enterprise Center. The homestand continues on Thursday when the New Jersey Devils are in town. So the Blues are back at 500, basically, is where they're at there. Still not out of the playoff picture, but they're on the wrong side of being on the cusp of the playoff picture, so they've got less than half a season to kind of turn things around. All right, just ahead, 314-912-1019. Do we, meaning the state, if you live in Missouri, owe compensation to a wrongly convicted man?
We've had all of our censors watching this for some time.
This week on News Talk STL.
I told them to shoot it down.
News, analysis, opinion.
What is currently happening?
Their dream is to cut Social Security Medicare. Well, let me say this.
Has to stop lying.
Dozens and dozens of whistleblowers, FBI agents coming to us.
He's filed in the House floor an expulsion of George Santos.
1019 and 94.1.
They think that we're too stupid to think for ourselves.
News Talk STL. And always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can hear Doug and Safe Money Radio 3 times every weekend on News Talk STL. But in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com. What else do our listeners need to know, Doug?
Simply put, I focus on helping pre-retirees and retirees build, preserve, and protect retirement assets, and I've been helping my clients solve their insurance and financial needs for the past 33 years. I also strive to educate my clients on how to prepare for retirement, minimize the impact of market volatility on their assets, and deal with the challenges of increased longevity. Call me today at 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233.
Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities LLLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
Hey, it's Mike Ferguson here. Everybody here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth of our business during our first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Clear Path Wealth Management, STL Fence Works, and Michael's Flooring that have all become advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. Thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Packages start at $29.99 a month with signed agreement. Restrictions apply. Speak to a representative for complete offer details. See Vivint.com for license details. Terms and conditions apply.
Homeowners, if you're looking for the best in home security and smart home technology at a price you can actually afford, we have great news. Now you can get Vivint's award-winning home security systems starting at about $1 a day. U.S. News and World Report has recognized Vivint as the best professionally installed home security system of 2022. And right now, you can get Vivint's home security technology for about $1 a day. Plus, get free professional installation from a licensed technician. Protect your home and loved ones for as low as $1 a day. Call right now for your free home security consultation.
800-561-3405. 800-561-3405. 800-561-3405. That's 800-561-3405.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
This hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Their lives thrown into disarray by the derailment of a trainload of toxic chemicals, triggering spectacular explosions and a raging fire. Residents of East Palestine, Ohio, to attend a town hall meeting this evening, looking for answers to their concerns about the air and water. Ohio's public health chief, Dr. Bruce Vanderhoff, trying to reassure the understandably fearful residents.
We have first made sure that we were providing a clean atmosphere, clean air, and now we are actively working to assure that people have clean water.
Biden Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg facing a growing backlash over his handling of the crisis. He's accused of doing far too little, way too late. Mourners gather in a church in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, a vigil for the 3 students killed by a gunman on the Michigan State University campus in East Lansing. The audio courtesy of WXYZ TV. Police still don't have a motive for the attack, which has President Biden once again calling for more gun laws. A closed-door briefing by 4 senators on the recent shoot-down of unidentified flying objects appears to have raised as many questions as it answered. Republican Senator Tom Cotton slams the Biden administration for its handling of the matter.
On the one hand, the administration is saying we don't yet know what these last 3 objects are, and we don't want to characterize until we recover them. But on the other hand, it wasn't a threat. Both of those things can't be true. So that's why it's urgent that President Biden resolve these contradictions.
After more than 3 decades in office, California Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein will not seek re-election. On Wall Street this morning, Dow futures down 84 points. NASDAQ futures off 83. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Relief Factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
How long does it take to tackle a home project? With Angie, you could cross it off your list before this ad is over. Just tell us what you need. Indoor or outdoor, repair or redesign, and we handle the rest, sending a top pro to get it done. You don't have to lift a finger, except to tap the screen or click the mouse. Plus, Angie is free to use. So bring us your next home project, and we'll bring it home. Download the app or go to Angie.com. That's ANGI.com to get started.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Beautiful day on tap. Lots of sunshine today after lows in the 40s this morning to near 50 degrees. The high this afternoon, 62. A dry day. A little breezy this morning, but the winds will taper off a little bit as we go through the day. Still a breeze, but it should be nice. Overnight lows tonight in the mid-40s, and then the temperatures crash tomorrow into the mid-30s by the early evening hours and 20s overnight tomorrow night. We are looking at showers and thunderstorms tonight. There could be a few strong storms well south of St. Louis. It does look dry on Thursday, but breezy and turning much colder. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner, and the entire Walner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Do you live in West St. Louis County? Then you can get West News Magazine delivered free to your home just by asking for it. West News Magazine is the only print source for the political, school, business, and sports news happening in your hometown. Simply visit westnewsmagazine.com/subscribe or pick up a free copy at all area Deerbergs and Schnuck stores. West News Magazine. Anybody who wants it gets it. Anybody who gets it wants it. Subscribe for free today. Simply visit westnewsmagazine.com/subscribe.
Tony Colombo here, reminding you to visit my friends at Bluff City Outdoors in Alton before your next trip into the great outdoors. For decades, Bluff City Outdoors has covered all the needs for area fishermen, and they'll always have all the best bait, tackle, and gear for your next trip on the water. And now they cover all your bow hunting needs, including their state-of-the-art indoor archery range and techno hunt system, open every day for you to come shoot, or you can join a league. Follow Bluff City Outdoors on Facebook and learn more at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
This is what's happening.
I'm so sorry, sir. Our country is failing you today.
News, analysis, opinion.
Based upon the anti-Semitic comment, she shouldn't serve that.
101.9 and 94.1.
I think it's pure racism.
News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
We have a hope.
Get up! Get up! Can't you hear the alarm? Get up! Get up!
What do you call a genius in President Biden's Homeland Security Department? A visitor.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Get up! Get up! Can't you hear the alarm? Get up! Get up!
Okay, big question here in just a moment. Give me about 35 seconds for this. Does the state of Missouri owe a now freed man any compensation for 28 years in prison? I'm going to get the details for you, let you know what is happening, and I'm really curious what you think about that. Also, a 7:05. Listen, I know that people listen on your way to work or whatever. You need to make sure that you make an appointment to be listening at 7:05. Chloe Cole may be the best known so-called detransitioner. You familiar with that term, Paul? Paul Kerman?
Yes.
Yeah, Paul is in for Gabe Pfeiffer, who's on vacation still. Chloe Cole was just featured on Fox News. She's been featured on, I think, all the conservative national media. She's a young gal who was gender confused, a few years back, went through some of the procedures and figured it out, as most kids will do. And she's now fighting to stop these procedures and abuses from happening to other kids. And so she's going to be with us 1 hour from right now.
That'll be interesting. I've seen her on television before, giving her talks.
Mm-hmm.
And it is alarming when somebody who's detransitioned and still very young.
Oh, yeah. She's only 18 right now. This is going to be heavy. I mean, I'm telling you, this is some serious stuff right here. But Missouri is considering a bill like South Dakota's that would just ban it for anybody under the age of 18. So other states are passing similar bills. So we'll get her take on that. That's going to be there's going to be a lot of really heavy duty stuff there at 7:05. Just a quick note here before we get into this big question of the day here, or one of the big questions of the day. If you own a Nissan Frontier pickup truck, or a Nissan Titan pickup truck, or an Xterra, Pathfinder, or Armada SUV that's model years 2008 to 2011, contact your mechanic or a Nissan dealer. They found a safety issue with part of the steering wheel. And so just a quick note, apparently the emblem, the logo on the wheel, when the airbag is deployed, becomes basically a projectile and comes loose. So you've got a little plastic bullet headed right at your chest. So they've got a fix for that. So if you have one of those vehicles, there are like 460 some odd thousand vehicles affected by that. And I think that my wife's oldest son has that. It's my dad's old pickup truck, which is a Nissan Frontier. I think it's in that area. So if you own one of those, or just call a local Nissan dealer and they'll tell you about that. If it's a recall, they fix it for free. You don't pay anything for that.
Definitely want to get that one taken care of. That's not like a malfunction with the automatic window.
No. This is, if it's bad enough the airbags are being deployed, that you have an additional thing with your car basically shooting you. So no, you don't want that. All right. Okay, so a man in the St. Louis area here in prison for, 28 years. We're talking almost 3 decades. is now free. He's been released. A judge overturned the murder conviction, vacated it completely, and the now 50-year-old man is free. Fox News' Jessica Rosenthal has more.
Lamar Johnson has insisted he did not kill Marcus Boyd in 1994 in a fight over drug money. While prosecutors said his conviction was fair, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney argued it was not, and Judge David Mason agreed it was not.
It is hereby ordered that the motion of the Circuit Attorney of the 22nd Judicial Circuit filed herein for the benefit of Lamar Johnson is granted.
Johnson appeared emotional at that moment. His girlfriend had testified the night of the murder that Johnson was with her, only leaving for a few minutes to carry out a drug sale. The other man convicted here, Phil Campbell, retracted his claim that Johnson was with him that night and said it was another individual, who then admitted that it was he who was with Campbell during the murder. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Okay, so we're not arguing that a local deacon in the church got caught up at the wrong place, wrong time. This guy, has his own issues, but everything indicates he didn't have anything to do with the murder of Marcus Boyd. So here's the question, Paul. I'll start with you. In 314-912-1019, he was in prison for 28 years. Does the state owe him compensation? Does the state owe him money for all those years that were taken away from him?
I think it depends. So I know that there are some times in the criminal justice system where law enforcement or investigators are just negligent. They're complacent. They're looking for an easy conviction, and they just don't do their job the right way. Like they let their standards slip because they just want a conviction, and so they take something easy, but not necessarily something that's, I guess, proves beyond shadow of a doubt that somebody's guilty. I think in a case like that, where if they would have actually performed to the standards that they were trained to and they did every reasonable thing that they could in their power to make sure that they got the right conviction, as long as they did everything right, then I would say no, because it's not a perfect system. But if they were lax in the investigation and they were just trying to take an easy path to the easiest conviction that they could probably get, even though it was questionable whether or not he really did it, then yeah, I would say that the cost to the system to actually fail people to execute justice to our best ability, there should probably be something there for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, still, there are some states that have automatically on the laws, if you turn out to be wrongly convicted, X number of dollars per year that you were in prison. In Kansas, I believe it's like $65,000, which means that Lamar Johnson would get over $1.5 million if that were the case. But if he was convicted wrongly, which it appears that he was, I say we because we're the taxpayers here, do we owe him something?
I don't know the ins and outs of the case. I'm stumped as to the fact that it took 28 years to come to this conclusion, the recanting of those individuals. Why would it take this long? I'm familiar with some issues where lawyers from Northwestern University have come in on behalf of wrong convictions in the Chicago area, and they've been able to get stuff overturned up there. To have this happen, it's very problematic to think that it took this many years, and this poor guy is stuck 28 years incarcerated. I would lean towards yes. I think he does have the right to ask for some money.
And in this case, they took somebody else who was there and asked him who was with you. And a lot of times, these people, the people who are already caught, will just start coughing up names trying to get some type of plea deal. I think that I am not an expert here, but that my impression of this is that's a very weak way to find a conviction.
Yeah, and that was part of a plea deal. It was the other guy had a plea deal, and eventually even the people who actually were there admitted, all right, it was us. So they're probably going to end up with some kind of conviction as well. I'm going to argue that even if the lawyers, the prosecutors, and the investigators did their best by the book and just got it wrong, I still think 28 years of freedom taken away for something you didn't do, I still think that the state owes him something. And I know that puts me in agreement with a whole bunch of people on the other side, but I just think the bottom line is that somebody good faith swinging and missing doesn't change the fact that his freedom was taken away.
I agree with that. Like if it was me, I would say I want something for this. But on the flip side of that coin, you also got to recognize too, and I think you do, and I think most people do, we want a perfect system, but you can't have a perfect system made up of imperfect people. And so, like, there's always going to be failures in the system. And I think maybe having some type of financial compensation there, because the guy's freedom was completely taken away from him because the system actually failed in that case.
Yeah, and then it comes down to who pays for it. You know, who is responsible, who has a penalty for it.
There should be limits, though, because that it can't be like a cookie cutter approach. Oh, you were falsely imprisoned. Well, I think there's other things to take into consideration. Was the guy part of the crime at all, or was he just not the trigger puller? You know?
Yeah, the evidence indicates he was not part of the crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think looking at a case by case basis, you just got to look at more depth to find out what that looks like.
I didn't catch his age, by the way.
He's 50 now.
So he lost over half of his life.
Over half of his life, yeah.
Man.
So I would sue for a bazillion trillion dollars and then settle for $100 million. Is what I would do. Realistically, if there's a lawsuit, there'll be some settlement and probably be, $1.5 million or $2 million, something like that. So, they're not going to give him back 28 years of his life, but there'll be something. All right, quick note here. A new study has come out, and this involved, this involved 78 controlled trials regarding the effectiveness of masks, not just during COVID, but during H1N1 a number of years ago, during flu seasons, non-pandemic and otherwise. And guess what they found when comparing the use of medical and surgical masks to wearing no masks? The review, which has been peer-reviewed, found that wearing masks did what?
Negligible difference?
I'm going to say made it even worse because you got all this air that's being breathed and rebreathed trapped in the mask now.
The 9 studies involving 276,917 people found that wearing masks made little to no difference. And they emphasized basically no difference just because they can't say that for certain. And it probably made little to no difference in flu COVID confirmed by laboratory tests in 6 other studies with that involved 13,919 people.
That's a big study. That's a big sample.
Yes, that's a massive sample. Of course, people in the establishment are saying, yeah, but it was randomized and it could be some bias, which those who did the study say, oh yeah, this technique could lend itself to some bias, but you've literally got studies involving nearly 300,000 people of countries around the world of all different income levels, and they've come to the same conclusion that other serious studies have found, which is that masks did nothing, and that's the best case scenario. They could have actually been harmful than otherwise.
I'm more concerned about the bias of the people telling us how to live.
Yes, thank you. Amen. Thank you very much. All right, 314-912-1019. Let's see here. We got other stuff to talk about. How about this? Washington University says, you're darn right we're going to keep abusing children. I'll give you the update on that at around 6:20 on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Would you agree that there is a point in history that every city must face? The city of St. Louis has been under a one-party rule for over 70 years. That can begin to change on March 7th and April 4th. Hi, this is Mary Teresa McClain, chair of the Republican Party, City of St. Louis. I want you to go to stlvoters.com now and meet our 2 candidates who will change history in our great city. Thank you for taking the time to go to stlvoters.com, where good decisions are made.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC, Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
The Vic Porcelli Show.
October, today I wanted to talk, if you don't mind, about drug prices. You okay with that?
Street drugs or pharmaceuticals? What are you talking about?
I don't know. What do you got?
What are you looking for? I don't wear trench coats. No, I'm kidding you.
Hey,
I heard you. I couldn't believe what they're charging now. They're going to charge $100 for marijuana growers if you want to cultivate marijuana, like privately, just for your own use. You're going to have to get a license from the state, and it's crazy.
Vic Porcelli, live and local, weekday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
It's Proctor spelled like doctor for custom window fabrics and shutters. Upgrade or start from scratch. Either way, Michael is the St. Louis expert. Check him out at proctordrapery.com and then call Proctor spelled like doctor for shutters, shades, and draperies.
Proctor Drapery, the best in town. No finer window fashion can be found. Call for an appointment at your home. Spell Proctor like doctor.
Hi, Susie Moore here. American culture is at a crossroads. My friend and coworker at Red State, Kira Davis, has written a new book called Drawing Lines: Why Conservatives Must Begin to Battle Fiercely in the Arena of Ideas. She challenges conservative Americans to stop retreating from culture and helps you to think critically through the pressing cultural issues of our day and offers practical advice and solutions. It's time for conservatives to make themselves uncomfortable and get engaged, get inspired, get moving, and get winning. Pick up a copy of Kira's new book, Drawing Lines, available at Amazon, faithfultexts.com, or wherever books are sold. I'm Susie Moore, and this is More to the Point. I don't know if you already knew this, but Ron DeSantis wears cowboy boots. I know, it's scandalous. For many, I suspect it's a presidential deal breaker. I mean, assuming he throws his metaphorical 10-gallon hat into the ring, his footwear choice should, well, boot him right back out of it. As my Red State colleague Sister Tolja detailed on Tuesday, American Bridge President Pat Dennis is perturbed by DeSantis' boot wearing and is certain it's deliberate chicanery intended to fool everyone into believing DeSantis is taller than he actually is. I don't know how tall Ron DeSantis is. Some sites list him at 5'9", while others put him at 5'11". I will note that photos of him standing next to Joe and Jill Biden, reportedly 5'11.5" and 5'6" respectively, make 5'11" appear more likely, but the bigger question is who actually cares? Is he kicking puppies with those boots or progressive sacred cows? From what I've seen, it's the latter, and I suspect it's the fact that DeSantis is willing to go toe-to-toe with the woke left that has people like Pat Dennis and his fellow travelers stomping their feet over his anticipated White House run. Regardless of his measured height, DeSantis' leadership style puts him head and shoulders above anyone that the Dems are likely to field.
Susie Moore is Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. For more to the point and everything Susie Moore, log on to RedState.com. Follow Susie on Twitter at SmoozyQ and keep listening to 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL. St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
We need change in our country right now.
Live and local.
They clubbed us over the head for 2 years.
Yep. You want corruption? This is how we get corruption.
This is News Talk STL. This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hey, this is Larry Connors. Make sure you're listening later today at 6 o'clock on News Talk STL for my show, Larry Connors USA. Now, back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
All right, the abuse of children is going to continue at Washington University's so-called medical offices, at least for the time being. Missouri might become the next state to ban that. I'll tell you about that here in about 30 seconds. All right, the tickets are going fast, but there still are some left. The Defending America event, Telling the Stories We Shouldn't Tell, is happening March 14th, which is a Tuesday, less than a month from right now. It's going to happen in View 17 off of Brentwood Boulevard. Former Senator Jim Talent, Dakota Wood from the Heritage Foundation. We're going to be talking national security. We're going to be talking national sovereignty, especially important right now, knowing that we're being spied on and there are other threats that we either haven't gotten to or refuse to get to. What is it that we need to know? That conversation is going to be very, 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 very eye-opening, and you should be there, and it's free, but you just got to go to News Talk STL to get your tickets. The people at Hammond Institute at Lindenwood University are making this possible, so thank you to Hammond Institute. HammondInstitute.org is where you learn more about them, and they've actually got a link to the event as well.
You know, you mentioned the borders.
Yes.
I don't mean to be simplistic, but we've got issues on all of our borders, north, south, east, west, coastal, beaches in Florida, et cetera. We've got stuff going on everywhere.
Yeah, and Jim and Dakota are as good as anybody when it comes to breaking down the realities of what it means to all of us. So it's going to be a fascinating discussion. You going to be able to make it up, Paul?
Yeah, I think I am. And I would really like to know, like, I'll tell you what, it's a great name of an event. What is it?
Stories we shouldn't tell.
We shouldn't tell.
Yeah, it's telling stories we shouldn't tell.
Telling stories we shouldn't tell.
It feels like it's a whistleblower event, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those things like where you're going to go. Well, first of all, between Dakota and Senator Talent, who has sat on some incredibly important committees in Washington, D.C., but since then has still been incredibly involved, knowing things that almost nobody else knows, and to be able to have that insight.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good event.
Yeah, Chris Arps and Tim Jones are hosting the event from our afternoon show, obviously, so you should be there. NewsTalkSTL.com. Remember, tickets are free, but you do need your reservation. Okay, yesterday was the deadline for Washington University, BJC, St. Louis Children's Hospital, to respond to Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey's request for a moratorium on injecting chemicals, hormones, surgical procedures on vulnerable children. He gave them that deadline of yesterday. It wasn't legally binding, but they responded with a fairly short letter. And let me break it down very simply, Paul. What they said is, no, we will not stop abusing children with this so-called transgender treatment. We will not stop injecting hormones into children. We will not stop injecting other chemicals. We will not stop surgeries on children, calling that critical care. But the chancellor of Washington University, Andrew Martin, and the president and CEO of BJC Healthcare, on behalf of St. Louis Children's Hospital, Richard Leakwig, sent a letter saying, but we are adding more oversight because this is critical care, and this is the only place in the area where children can get this critical, needed treatment. And everything that just came out of my mouth, I just described something nothing short of demonic.
You know, you're calling it, well, you're not calling it, Washington University is calling it critical. That ought to completely frame our understanding of exactly what's at stake. When you have the medical community saying, no, gender reaffirming care for minors, this confusion that they have, making sure that we modify their body to fit whatever they're thinking at the moment, that's critical. These are the same people that are writing in these medical journals and everything else about cancer and heart disease and all the things that really are critical. And what they're doing is they're saying what's critical is this social agenda that we're going to be pushing on these kids and everything that we're going to support. And so you know that you got all these doctors at Washington University now who are going to be supporting and backing and throwing all their twisted spin and data into everything that the left is going to use to continue to push this on our kids.
These are basically monsters in white coats still.
Mm-hmm. And I think of how other nations must look at us in situations like this, and they have to be shaking their heads and thinking, what is going on in the United States of America?
Well, Europe was some countries in Europe were doing this years before we were, and they've shut down, in some cases, those clinics, realizing the harm that it's actually doing. I mean, I'm trying to figure, how somebody lives with themselves. I'm talking, I want to get very, very personal. I don't want this to be abstract. If somebody who works at St. Louis Children's Hospital or Washington University, any of their medical facilities, or BJC, any of those facilities, if this is your establishment, if you go to work every day knowing that you're part of this, how do you look yourself in the mirror and live with yourself knowing that you are giving life-altering procedures to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old children, knowing that most of them, if left to counseling or even their own devices, will figure it out because we've got decades of studies that show that. But even if they still struggled with things, the idea that you're putting a needle into a body of a child to stop their natural growth, whether it's puberty blockers or hormones of the other sex, and buying into this narrative. How do you live with yourself? How do you not realize the evil that you're doing?
How do you go home at night? How do you lay in bed at night when you've got those moments when you can contemplate situations like this? How can you validate what you're doing? I don't understand that either.
The other question is, how in the world are parents ever going to trust any hospital ever again, knowing that they consider this kind of stuff critical? I mean, you got other kids out there really facing critical issues, right? Things that they need to save their life. And here they're confusing elective surgery with critical care. And it's an elective surgery. It's like you can't talk about this enough, but it doesn't seem to be sinking in with people. It's not just that it's life-altering, but like you're changing the body makeup of a kid, of a little kid. It's going to be with them their whole life. And this person's going to have regrets and everything else when they get old. People have regrets over tattoos. That's why kids aren't allowed to go get tattoos.
And they're rushing to do it before puberty because, well, it's easy to permanently alter them. I'm going to read you just a little bit of the letter they sent back to Attorney General Bailey. This is Washington University and BJC writing saying, Caring for our patients and their families is our highest priority and a critical component of the missions of our institution. So this is kind of that BS part of it. We believe you will share in our concern for the health, safety, and well-being of our most vulnerable populations, including, importantly, the young people we serve. We know that patients who are experiencing gender dysphoria and related issues are often a significant risk. The Washington University Transgender Center at St. Louis Children's Hospital is the only, and they emphasize the word, only place in the entire state of Missouri where transgender youth can access the care they need to ensure their mental and physical well-being. Demonic.
Yeah.
Demonic is what that is. I don't know how else to say it.
Part of me says, well, I'm glad it's the only place. And the other part of me says it's a shame, and it is outrageous that we have any facility in Missouri where you have the so-called experts and the people that take a Hippocratic oath willing to do this to kids. Just do it to kids. Yeah, don't want them to go get a tattoo. Not old enough to go fight for your country. Not old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes. But here, let's castrate you at the age of 9 or whatever the case may be.
Right. All right, we've got Rebecca with some thoughts on this. Rebecca, I've got an information segment coming up here in just a minute, but you're on the air.
Hi.
Hello?
Sure. I call it gender theft, and I think of it for no other analogy. I think of it like the Germans whenever Hitler started doing all the rotten, demonic stuff that he did. And you take a little bit, and then it's a little bit more, and it's a little bit more, until your conscience is so seared that you can't think. And all you think of is your agenda. And that's where I think this group of people is at. And I thank God that lady that reported this, that her conscience is coming back, that she has thoughts of compassion towards her fellow man, and thoughts of right is right and wrong is wrong.
All right, Rebecca, thank you so much. An interesting perspective on that. The conscience is eating away. That's a really good way to put it. All right, 314-912-1019. Still have time to get your thoughts in on this, I should say. Also at 7:05, probably the best-known detransitioner, Chloe Cole, going to be with us. She's in Missouri this week trying to help pass a law that would ban this sort of abuse on other children because she's actually gone through it. Just ahead, all right, Senator Josh Hawley, man, he's right about a lot of stuff, but I think you might be really wrong about something else. You may disagree. I don't know where Stell and Paul, I don't know where you guys are on this, but Senator Hawley, he says there should be a law to help parents keep their kids off social media. I'll tell you what it is just ahead right here on 119 94.1 News Talk STL.
Like and subscribe to us on Rumble. News Talk STL. Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning. This is News Talk STL. News, analysis, and opinion from the voices you know and trust. News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and newstalkstl.com. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Beautiful day on tap. Lots of sunshine today after lows in the 40s this morning to near 50 degrees. The high this afternoon, 62. A dry day. A little breezy this morning, but the winds will taper off a little bit as we go through the day. Still a breeze, but it should be nice. Overnight lows tonight in the mid-40s, and then the temperatures crash tomorrow into the mid-30s by the early evening hours and 20s overnight tomorrow night. We are looking at showers and thunderstorms tonight. There could be a few strong storms well south of St. Louis. It does look dry on Thursday, but breezy and turning much colder. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
Hey, Pocket Watchers. By now, I know you heard that the IRS is hiring 87,000 more agents. What does that mean? More collections, more audits. If you have a tax problem, unfiled tax returns, a large tax bill that you can't handle, give my office a call, 314-776-9076. I have years of experience of representing clients before the IRS to resolve tax problems. So stop hiding. Sticking your head in the sand is not going to make this go away. Give my office a call, 314-776-9076. Thornton Advisor Group is here to help you. Set up your free consultation to get an understanding of what's going on with your IRS case. Stop ignoring those letters. Give my office a call, 314-776-9076, or visit us online at thorntonadvisor.com.
How is your car payment treating you? What if I told you you could make a free phone call right now and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Look at your car payment closely. You could be paying as high as 20% interest. Rate Genius can help you reduce your car payments by reducing your interest rate to as low as 2.48% APR. We can refinance most existing car loans or leased cars, new or used, and save you money every month. Put more money back in your pocket. The call is free to find out how low we can lower your car payment. 5 minutes of your time right now could save you hundreds of dollars a year. Call Rate Genius now.
800-764-2179. 800-764-2179. 800-764-2179. That's 800-764-2179.
Not all applicants qualify for a loan or rate savings. Actual offer terms, including APR, are determined at the time of your application based on creditworthiness, value of the vehicle, loan term, and other factors.
No big old corporate lib AM station telling us what to say here.
Conservative talk for St. Louis. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1,
and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Dan Bongino here. Keep it on News Talk STL because my show starts at 11 a.m. Right now, it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
All right, is it empowering parents or is it government trying to co-parent your kids? Believe it or not, guys, there is something that Josh Hawley and Joe Biden agree on. I don't know. Here's the thing. I know that I'm probably going to piss off some Republicans, but I want the conversation. I really do. You think I'm right? I disagree with Josh Hawley on something. I'm about to tell you what it is. You know, but
let's go.
Maybe you can convince me. Maybe you're right and I'm wrong. All right. Also, a little bit here, talk about this about 15 minutes, and then there were two. Officially, Nikki Haley, as expected, announces her run for the Republican nomination for president. Would you consider her for your vote? We will get to that around 6:50. Are you committed to somebody? Are you shopping around? What do you think about a Nikki Haley entrance into that race? Okay, so there was a hearing regarding social media on at Washington, in Washington, D.C. in the U.S. Senate. And Josh Hawley, of course, is definitely one of those trying to take the lead in the conversation. And he was talking to somebody who was called to testify who I don't know what happened to her son, but something bad happened to her son. And she's blaming social media as a role for that. So lawmakers on Capitol Hill considering establishing a minimum age requirement for social media after holding a hearing on the impacts of the platforms on children. Jillian Turner from Fox News has basically the start of our conversation.
This Senate panel is looking at the question of how young is simply too young for social media. Something that emerged right off the bat is how much worse the effects of social media are for girls. 13 is the age at which Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook allow kids onto their platforms. The Surgeon General, though, infamously said he believes that is way too young. President Biden himself weighed in. He said he agrees with that assessment.
We have to pass legislation on the damaging technology that's having an effect on our kids.
Senator Josh Hawley, though, is really leading the charge right now. He's got a proposal that bans social media for all kids in America under age 16.
Okay, so here's a clip of that actual hearing, and this is Senator Hawley responding to the lady who was testifying.
As a father myself, when you say things like, well, the parents really ought to be educated. Listen, the kid's ability, and I bet you had this experience, Ms. Bright, the kid's ability to figure out how to set what's on this phone. My 10-year-old knows more about this phone than I know about it already. what's going to be like in another 4 years or 5 or 6 years like your son, Miss Bride. So I just say as a parent, it would put me much more in the driver's seat if the law was you couldn't have a phone. I'm sorry, you couldn't get on social media till 16. I mean, that would help me as a parent. So that's why I'm proposing it. Parents are in favor of it. I got the idea from parents who came to me and said, please help us. Please help us. And listen, I'm all for tech training. It's great. But I just don't think that's going to cut it. So I've introduced legislation to do it. Let's keep it simple. Let's put this power in the hands of parents. I'd start there.
I don't need the federal government to co-parent with me, Paul. By the way, 314-912-1019. If this is a good idea, you agree with Senator Hawley, disagree with me, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. But to me, that's big government trying to co-parent.
100%. And let's talk about how little sense what Senator Hawley said actually makes. Well, these kids have the ability to do things. Oh, we'll lock your phone. What makes you think that they're not going to find a way to get a social media account? I mean, are they going to require Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all these social media companies to verify your age by having you upload your driver's license or a birth certificate? I mean, how are they going to do that?
They say there's going to have to be some verification, but I don't know what the detail is.
And then the other side of this is too, Josh Hawley wants to talk about his kids. I've got more kids than Josh Hawley has, and I disagree. So does that make me speak from a higher place of authority because I have more children than Senator Hawley has? No. The place of authority, let's all get back to the Constitution. Senator Hawley doesn't have the authority to tell parents in the country what they are and aren't allowed to do with their kids because the government doesn't own the kids. That's just how it works. I don't need a law to keep my kids off of social media. I don't need a law to do it. I don't need a law. I don't smoke heroin or shoot up with, I don't know if you smoke. I don't know how this stuff works. I don't shoot up with heroin because there's a law against heroin. I don't do it because I was raised right and I've learned some things. I don't need laws to stop me from doing things that are destructive to me. I just need good parenting. And if you really want to stop kids from getting on social media, start passing laws to empower parents and put responsibility back on the parents. Because now this is going to shift responsibility from the parents to the government. And the government's going to feel the need to always begin to regulate how parents and kids get on social media if something like this gets through. First of all, I don't think it's going to get through. I don't think it's going to get through at all. You have social media companies out there that are writing way bigger checks than anybody in Missouri's ever written to a politician. And if you think the politicians are going to do something to hurt these social media companies at the end of the day, probably not going to happen. A lot of times you see politicians introducing bills so that way they can look really good. You know, they can say stuff like this, but at the end of the day, it's not going anywhere because money speaks louder than voters usually in Washington, D.C.
And this, of course, is kind of a pattern with Senator Hawley. At one point he was proposing rules that would force social media companies to kick you off, the app after so many minutes. Because we shouldn't be spending so much time on there. That obviously went nowhere too. All right, still, is this empowering parents because kids are going to work around what parents say anyway? Or is this big? It is big government. I don't think they can argue it's not big government. But is it big government that we need?
I agree with Paul.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering why Josh just doesn't continue his efforts to work with the tech companies. Why is he getting himself involved in this issue? Because I agree with Paul. This is a parental thing. This is something where a family needs to decide. You sit down with the kids and you make a family decision regarding how kids are going to handle social media.
Yeah, the other aspect of this is, okay, but bad things happen. I actually personally know a young man who took his own life a few years back, and his mother told me about he had one set of social media accounts that his friends and his family had. Then he had another one that they didn't know about, and there was some really awful stuff and psychological terrible things that other kids were doing and saying. And there are bad things that happen on there without any question whatsoever. But the answer can't be let's pass a law because parents need a federal law. Because Junior, Dad says don't get on Facebook, you're not ready. Well, I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, but there's a federal law against it, and I'm 12, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Since when has the government or any U.S. senator or congressman or anybody in Washington, D.C. ever actually been the better solution to the family than the actual family? It's never the family feeds, clothes, and educates more people than the U.S. government ever has. So how about we start putting the responsibility here back on the parents? I mean, and the other thing, too, you got all these people in Washington, D.C., right? I mean, just the other day, AOC, we were talking about this yesterday on the radio. AOC goes after the Super Bowl commercial because, the Christo-fascists. You know what? Recognizing the role that religion and morality plays in families does a lot more to keep kids safe on social media than a law's ever going to do. George Washington said it in his farewell address. Religion and morality are indispensable supports of freedom, meaning that if you can't police yourself, then the government's going to have to police you. But by Josh Hawley saying it's the government's role, well, it's not the government's role to do it. Find ways for the government to start supporting the family.
Can
I'm getting kind of fired up over this because I have a chip on my shoulder for any politician who's going to tell me as a parent what I am and am not allowed to do with my kids, especially on something as benign, and let's call it what it is. There are bad things that happen, but overwhelmingly what happens on social media is really just benign as people post pictures of their breakfast or their cat.
It's another tool. I mean, what's next? You know what, kids of under the age of 16 really shouldn't be watching some of that stuff on cable TV. Let's ban kids from watching cable TV or decide what channels they can watch or otherwise. That's the parents' job. There are some more libertarian-ish friends I'm seeing who are being consistent and calling out the senator on this. But for the most part, if Senator Bernie Sanders had proposed this, if Cory Booker, if Elizabeth Warren, if Rashida Tlaib, if Gavin Newsom, if any of these people had proposed this exact thing, the right would be going crazy. Tucker Carlson would be losing his mind. Jesse Waters would be losing his mind. Candace Owens would be losing her mind. But it came from one of us.
Well, can I give you another example? I brought this up during the break, and that was when Senator Hawley introduced a bill to put a price cap on insulin. And we know that there's too many regulations. When Trump got into office, he said, hey, there's all these drugs sitting on this waiting list at the FDA. We're going to free it up so more drugs to help people can actually make their way to the market. Well, instead of putting a price cap on something, which is just going to turn away innovation and producers and manufacturers, why don't we make it easier? Insulin, from what I understand, not an expert, not a doctor, not a pharmacist, but from what I understand, a relatively easier drug or whatever it is to make for people. It's relatively easier than other types of chemical drugs manufacturing. Make it easier to get this stuff to the people rather than just putting a price cap on it. That'll drive down the price when there's more of it available to the people that need it. So, freedom actually works when you actually decide to use freedom to get the ends that you're looking for instead of more government rules and mandates.
Yeah, every time there's been some sort of artificial cap by government, it sends a signal to the market, don't produce more. Don't get into the competition. And you can hold prices down, but you will hold supply down, which then drives up everything from black market to other problems.
And I know he's a smart guy, but I really wish he would read Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. You read that book, Basic Economics, it'll tell you everything you need to know about which direction the government needs to go to increase the amount of peace and prosperity and access to drugs or things that people need in society.
There are many things I think Josh Hawley is spot on and right about, particularly when it comes to national security and our borders and dealing with China. I think he's spot on. I'm glad he's there. On stuff like this, I just think he gets it wrong, and I think conservatives need to be leading the charge to say, no, Senator Hawley, government's not our co-parent. This is not your lane. Stay in your lane, because when you stay in your lane, you're really darn good at it. 314-912-1019. Agree? Disagree? Let's have that conversation. Also, Nikki Haley saying she's in, which we knew was going to happen. Are you willing to shop your vote around, and would you consider Nikki Haley or anybody else? We'll talk about that right around 6:50 on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL. Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning. The news and talk.
Because the people of this nation are strong. The State of the Union is strong.
That matters to St. Louis.
Forgive me for not believing much of anything I heard tonight.
101.9 and 94.1.
This is kind of an exaggeration. Let's put it that way.
News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Tim Jones. You need an event space that people will talk about later and forever? View 17 in Brentwood is that place. Perfect for corporate, private, or even public events. View 17 is ultra modern and fully broadcast ready for live streaming your event. And get this, all tech rentals are included in the rental fee. View 17 on the 17th floor of the old U Club Tower, like no other event space in the area. What a view. Check it out right now at VUE17.com. VUE17.com. I might even see you there.
The Rob Carter Show.
How good is that Pure Cure coffee? Are you loving it?
Oh, yeah.
Pure Cure coffee is fantastic. What I like about this coffee, other than the multiple flavors, and I love the smell. You know, my wife and I get up every morning. We have the Pure Cure coffee. I love the taste. Listen, it's better coffee. PureCureCoffee.com. PureCur coffee.com. Get yourself some. It is fresh, delicious coffee, multiple flavors. Pure Cure Coffee. Get some. PureCureCoffee.com. PureCur coffee.com.
Hey, it's Katie. We here at News Talk STL really appreciate the growth in our business during our first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Save Money with Doug Voss, Crypto World, and the Natural Institute of Health that have all become part of our family of advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. 1019-941 News Talk STL.
Just like golf, investing your money can be tricky. Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft here. When market downturns happen, investors are tempted with products that promise to guard against inflationary sand traps. From coins to cryptocurrency and everything in between, always research the investment before you write the check. Visit MissouriProtectsInvestors.com for more information. That's MissouriProtectsInvestors.com.
Paid for by Investor Education and Protection Fund.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
For a Wednesday happy hump day, we'll have Horace Cooper of Project 21 at 3:45. At 4:25, Congressman Jason Smith, chairman of Ways and Means.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL. This hour of Mike Ferguson in the Morning is brought to you by Stifel. Request a portfolio review from your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Hey, Bill O'Reilly here, and you can hear my no-spin commentary right here at 6:45 this evening. Now it's back to Mike Ferguson in the morning on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
All right, have you made up your mind, or are you willing to shop around a little bit before deciding who to vote for in the next presidential race? We've got two officially, and we'll talk about that here in about 20 seconds or so. 7:05, you absolutely want to be listening when Chloe Colt is on with us in just about 15 minutes. She is testifying in Jefferson City in support of a law that would ban the abuse of children through these so-called transgender treatments, and she knows what she's talking about because she's been through it. She is what they're calling a detransitioner, 18 years old, and she's already had surgical procedures done. There are aspects of her life she is never ever going to get back, and she's talking to us at 7:05. You may have seen her on Fox News, just 2 days ago, I think it was. They did a big feature on her, but we're chatting with her just ahead right around 7:05. It is 6:51 right now. I'm Mike Ferguson, Paul Kurtman in for Gabe Pfeiffer today. Stel Ponticus, of course, is here, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. All right, and then there were two. Former President Trump now has his first official opponent in the Republican nomination for president. Fox News' Jessica Rosenthal has more.
Former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, released a video Tuesday announcing her plan to run for president.
It's time for a new generation of leadership.
She was critical of President Biden in the video and said our foreign adversaries are on the march right now.
I don't put up with bullies. And when you kick back, it hurts them more if you're wearing heels.
She will make it official later on today in person at the Charleston Visitor Center. Former President Trump said even though Haley had said she wouldn't run if he ran, he said he told her she should follow her heart and he wished her luck. After her video release, a reporter asked Florida Governor Ron DeSantis if he'd be following suit.
Wouldn't you like to know?
Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Okay, you guys willing to shop your vote around when the primary season comes here? All of us live on the Missouri side, or for those listening in Illinois as well. You willing to shop your vote around, or have you made up your mind? What do you think?
I've made up my mind so far.
Okay.
I don't know about you, Paul, but I have.
So one thing that I'm already observing about this next cycle for the presidential election is the candidates that are on the bench or kind of posturing to get on the bench, they're all very Donald Trump-like. And so I am a big fan of President Trump. However, I think that from that first administration, I think that we've learned a lot. I think a lot of people have learned a lot, and I'm interested to see how some of these Trump-like candidates are, how they could kind of take that torch and kind of innovate from it, go from it, what their ideas are from that first administration. So I'm not for sure locked into Donald Trump, but right now, at this point, probably he's my candidate of the candidates that are on the bench.
The ones who are likely to get in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm willing to shop my vote around. I'm going to hold back and see who gets in for sure, who doesn't get in for sure. I'm going to play I am a swing voter when it comes to the primaries on this.
Still plenty of time.
Oh, there's lots of time.
And
Lots
anything
of time.
could happen.
Oh, yeah.
Anything could happen.
So Nikki Haley gets in. You look at just purely at her resume. That's a presidential resume. Now, I don't know that I will listen to what she has to say. I don't know that she's going to be in my top couple that I'm going to consider, but I think that she absolutely is a heavyweight in the race. I don't think you can call her front runner by any stretch, but I think she's a serious candidate. What would it take for her to get people to shop around their vote for her? Because I think it was very smart for her personally, just strategically, to get in as early as she did, so she can keep that name recognition. Whenever the newspapers write a story, whenever the media does a story on the race, well, here's the other official candidate. So she's in the media constantly. She's in the conversation.
And the fact that she had a working relationship as part of Donald Trump's team, that's going to be very interesting, because now that they're both in the race, eventually I can imagine some sparks flying from this, and we'll also all probably get a little bit of peek behind the veil of what that relationship looked like when she was at the UN. So I don't think Donald Trump's not going to wind up attacking her.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
It'll wind up happening. I thought her line was really good. It hurts worse. What does she say? It hurts worse.
Yeah, when you kick back against bullies, it hurts worse if you're wearing heels.
That was pretty good. And I like her. I do really, really like Nikki Haley. Maybe she wind up getting my vote. I don't know, but I do really like her. But I think right now, between her, Donald Trump, I am still a big Ron DeSantis fan.
Yeah.
And so I would like to see what he decides to do, and if he decides to come into the race, how he's going to differ from Trump and what those administrations would look like as the candidate's candidate for the position.
Yeah, so you might have a case of some people arguing to carry the torch, but they have to convince people that if you like Donald Trump, I'm like Donald Trump, but really it's better for me to take his torch than for him to take it back. And that's an interesting sell to try to make.
And it's one that I've heard before, because Donald Trump did, and this is kind of my position, he did so much to really, we all kind of knew what things were like. But Donald Trump came in knowing it and confronted it on live television, and that's what we needed. And so he did so much to help expose what's really going on, the deep state and everything else that we have all heard about and we're kind of concerned about and worried about, like, how real is this? He showed us how real it was. But at the same time, that first 4 years, there was so much controversy made by the Democrats as they constantly impeached or tried to impeach him. And if it's possible to be able to take that and actually lead from it, that would be a good thing too. I don't think the Democrats are going to allow that to happen. I don't even think the Republicans will allow that to happen with Donald Trump, because it was the Republicans that got the first Russian committee investigation. Remember that? Paul Ryan was the one that started that.
Yeah. All right, 314-912-1019. Just ahead right now. This is a conversation you don't want to miss at 7:05. Chloe Cole, she's trying to help Missouri lawmakers pass a bill to ban the gender transition abuse of young people in our state. Her story, unbelievably compelling. It's going to be emotional. There's a lot of heavy stuff here. You definitely want to hear it at 7:04.
Hey, it's Vic, and I'm here with Kathy Connor at Connor Roofing. Kathy, What makes Connor Roofing different?
Hey, Vic. I'm glad that you asked. I think that what really sets Connor Roofing apart is our relationship with our customers. It's very important to us to develop that trust with the homeowner. This is what has allowed us to serve our friends and our neighbors in the St. Louis area for 30 years. Whether we are doing a roof or a gutter repair or even a full replacement, you can count on Connor for quality service and workmanship.
Thanks, Kathy. To find out more, visit them at connorroofing.com. That's CONNER roofing.com.
News Talk STL is proud to have Doug Voss of Safe Money Radio as part of our lineup each week. Doug has been a staple on St. Louis radio for many years as one of the leading financial experts in the area. You can hear Doug and Safe Money Radio 3 times every weekend on News Talk STL. But in case you miss anything, you can check it all out at DougVossSafeMoneyRadio.com. What else do our listeners need to know, Doug?
Simply put, I focus on helping pre-retirees and retirees build, preserve, and protect retirement assets, and I've been helping my clients solve their insurance and financial needs for the past 33 years. I also strive to educate my clients on how to prepare for retirement, minimize the impact of market volatility on their assets, and deal with the challenges of increased longevity. Call me today at 844-676-SAFE. That's 844-676-7233.
Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through DHL Securities LLLP, member FINRA and SIPC.
For $1 a day, if any covered appliance breaks in your home, we guarantee to fix or replace it. All makes and models, washers, dryers, refrigerators, air conditioners, and more. Guaranteed to be fixed or replaced for $1 a day. Call the Home Service Club now for free information.
800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. That's 800-399-3701.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Republicans say the recent rash of UFO encounters warrants a presidential address to the nation. Senator Marco Rubio says there was ample justification for the military shooting down the objects.
If we have things flying over our airspace that is not ours, would not coordinate with us, and doesn't belong there, that is the definition of danger.
Rubio spoke following a closed-door briefing for senators. Louisiana Republican John Kennedy says we still don't know exactly what the objects are, who sent them, and why. Police still don't have a motive for the deadly attack on the University of Michigan campus in East Lansing. 3 students killed, 5 others wounded. The gunman subsequently took his own life. Sentencing due today for the man who fatally shot 10 people in last May's racially motivated attack at a Buffalo, New York supermarket.
Peyton Gendron will appear in the same Erie County court where in November he pleaded guilty to charges including murder and domestic terrorism motivated by hate. The terrorism charge carries an automatic life sentence, but Gendron still has to answer to charges in federal court. I'm Donna Warder.
Taking the lead in the fight against so-called woke investing, Ron DeSantis.
According to the Washington Examiner, the Florida governor and potential GOP presidential candidate has proposed legislation to prohibit state and local governments from including any environmental, social, or governance considerations in investment decisions at the state and local level. DeSantis characterized ESG investing as a mechanism to inject political ideology into investment decisions, corporate governance, and really just the everyday economy. Keith Peters reporting.
Later today, Nikki Haley formally launches her bid for the Republican presidential nomination. An event is planned in Charleston. On Wall Street, Dow futures down 51 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hello?
Hey, stranger.
Oh, hi. Thank goodness it's you. I was afraid to answer the phone.
Why? What's up?
The credit card companies are after me. They want me to make payments, and the calls never stop.
Ouch. Been there before, but I got help from Trinity Debt Management.
Trinity?
Yeah, I called, and right away, Trinity contacted my creditors and got my interest rates cut in half. They ended all the late fees and over-limit charges, and they stopped those annoying phone calls.
Bet that was a relief.
Yep. Then they put me on a plan that consolidated my bills into one easy monthly payment. That way, I paid off my debt fast while saving thousands.
Nice.
Trinity even showed me how to plan and meet a monthly budget. So now I'm debt-free for keeps.
Wow. Do you still have their number?
Sure. Here, write this down and call 1-800-990-6976.
Can you repeat that?
1-800-990-6976. That's 1-800-990-6976.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Beautiful day on tap. Lots of sunshine today after lows in the 40s this morning to near 50 degrees. The high this afternoon, 62. A dry day. A little breezy this morning, but the winds will taper off a little bit as we go through the day. Still a breeze, but it should be nice. Overnight lows tonight in the mid-40s, and then the temperatures crash tomorrow into the mid-30s by the early evening hours and 20s overnight tomorrow night. We are looking at showers and thunderstorms tonight. There could be a few strong storms well south of St. Louis. It does look dry on Thursday, but breezy and turning much colder. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. News, analysis, opinion.
What China did was completely unacceptable and a real threat to American sovereignty.
We are a nation now that has abandoned sovereignty. We do not know the origin of any of these objects. This is News Talk STL.
Shooting down a balloon. What's gone on the last 10 days has been nothing short of craziness. It's a violation of national law. It's our airspace.
The southern border is no longer enforced. Look at how China could fly a spy balloon over our country. What's next?
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL and newstalkstl.com.
Okay, you heard the news that inflation ticked up just a little bit. That information came out this week, and a lot of people are saying, I've got to just set back and not make any major financial decisions until things get better. That may be one of the worst things you can possibly do. Mike Ferguson here for the Wallner Home Selling Team with Berkshire Hathaway. Call Rodney and Jen today, 314-810-SOLD. I'm going to give you that number a couple more times. Maybe this isn't the right time. I don't know, but Rodney and Jen will give you guidance that is absolutely valuable and unbiased. If they tell you, wait, let's talk again a little bit later, then you know that you are getting good advice. If they say, no, actually, this may be the right time to put your home on the market, you're going to get that from somebody who knows what they're doing and is passionate about helping people right here in St. Louis, especially families. This is a family-run business that knows St. Louis like nobody else, and they've got the national resources of Berkshire Hathaway. Doesn't get any better than that. 314-810-SOLD. Call that number, which is what I call when I talk to Rodney and Jen about my wife and my desire to get some property in Southeast Missouri for vacations, when that's who we're working with, Rodney and Jen. I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not doing myself. 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
I think they're trying to attack the American people.
Live and local.
Gabe, Mike, Ken, you guys are my morning cup of mental coffee. I love the show. Definitely a convert from the old one.
This is News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson.
You play ball like a girl!
Gabe Pfeiffer.
I triple dog dare you!
Get up! Get up! Can't you hear the alarm?
Get up, St. Louis.
So it's time to get out of bed. Pour yourself the greatest cup of Kofifi the world has ever seen. Rise up with one voice. Drain the swamp and take back our country. Today's the day we're going to do it, and it's time to do it right now, believe me.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
All right, while Washington University insists that chemically and surgically altering vulnerable children is, in their words, critical medical care, we're about to hear from somebody who went through that and is now trying to protect others from the same harm that she went through. We're going to get to that in about 20 seconds right now. Mike Ferguson here. Paul Kurtman is in for Gabe Pfeiffer today. Stel Ponticus, of course, is here. 7:06 right now. If you haven't already subscribed to the News Talk STL podcast, definitely do that today. This conversation we're about to hear is one that I really hope that you're going to send far and wide to your friends and family, regardless of where they are in the country, because there is momentum on the side of protecting young people from these abuses. So wherever you get your podcast, just subscribe, News Talk STL. This conversation we're about to have is going to be posted probably here in just a few hours, and then it'll be available to get to everybody who needs to hear it, which is, well, everybody. All right, we know that in several states, South Dakota being one of the most recent, other states, including Missouri, I believe West Virginia, some others, are looking at laws that say if you are under the age of 18, we are not going to allow anybody to inject you with hormones, with puberty blockers, certainly not going to allow you to have a surgery that permanently alters your body. Even if you say you want it, even if your parents say, I'm okay with it. This is a pushback that needs to happen. Chloe Cole is maybe the best known, the word now is detransitioner. So Chloe, you've gone through this and you went really deep into this process. What was it that changed when you were post-surgery, when you were post these hormones? What was it that made you say, oh my goodness, this isn't right. I need to be who I actually am. And thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me. For me, what changed was, I think a big part, and it was just the fact that I had this surgery. I had a bit of a honeymoon period afterward, and that I was happy that I felt my body matched more with this idea of myself that I had in my head of being a male. But afterward, the honeymoon period went away, and I started having to deal with the reality of things, having to change my dressings every night and just look at this area of my chest that had been wounded from the surgery. And eventually, not long after that, I started to realize that there are some things that I missed about being a woman. Little things like wearing skirts and dresses and makeup without judgment, and just looking more feminine in general. But it took a long time for me. It took about 11 months for me after the surgery to really figure out what the problem was. And I'd say the biggest catalyst to my detransition was just taking a class in psychology and learning about like parenting and children's psychology. And I mean, it was the first time that I'd really ever thought about anything like that, because before that, I was just a kid going through the motions of growing up, going through puberty and going through middle and high school. And then I never really had thought about what being a parent might look like before. But I was told by my endocrinologist before I started taking testosterone, and by my surgeon, that it might affect my ability to have children as an adult, and that I would never be able to breastfeed after the surgery. But it didn't really mean anything to me at the time because, again, I was still a kid. I was 13 when I went on the testosterone, and I was 15 when I went under the knife, and I knew nothing about how important that really is.
Chloe, this is Paul Kurtman. Can we take a step back? I really want to ask you, what was it that led you to transitioning in the first place? What did the pressure look like, or how was it you came to make that decision? Was there people in your ear? Was it at school? Was it your friends? Was it online? Like, how was it that this opinion in your mind started to form that you should transition in the first place?
It wasn't really any particular person that pushed me to do it, or even at school, because, I mean, I just graduated high school last year, and I never heard about. This was never discussed in class. But from a young age, I started puberty fairly young, and I had some body image issues, partly because of that. And I was a bit of a tomboy, and I'm also on the spectrum. This did affect my socialization, especially with other girls. And I started using social media from a young age, and it kind of reinforced some of the negative feelings that I had about being a woman. And I would see this there is this ideal of women that visually I wasn't I was very conscious of not really matching up to. And I often felt like I would be better off as a boy. And on social media as well, I started seeing content that was LGBT centered, and especially of other young women who identified as like bisexual or gay, or usually actually it was of other young women and teen girls who identified as transgender or non-binary, and they were all, a lot of them were before transitioning in a very similar place to me. A lot of them had similar upbringings, and I would see a lot of them go from struggling socially, struggling to fit in, struggling with their own families, to slowly over time being more accepted. And as a kid who often felt very lonely, it was something that was very touching to me. And after some time to being exposed to it, I started to wonder, like, what is my own sexuality? What is my identity? And eventually I decided that it just made sense that I was just a boy, and that was what was causing, that was the source of my distress. I decided.
Chloe, when we've obviously heard about the new law in South Dakota. I know you're working this week in Missouri to support a similar act. It's called the SAFE Act. What is it that about these laws that you're so passionate about that says if you're under 18, you can't do any of the things that you were put through or that you went through? Why are these laws needed? What do you want them to actually accomplish?
I don't think it is under any circumstances appropriate to put a child under this. I mean, it's directly, by medically transitioning a child, you are directly interfering with their development and their ability to thrive as an adult. I think it's a basic human right to be able to procreate and to have a family naturally. And by experimenting on these kids, we are taking that away.
I know in St. Louis there's a big controversy because somebody who worked at, I'm sure you've probably read this, a whistleblower who talked about how aggressive these medical professionals, I'll say, are in trying to get children into some sort of transitioning process. What is it about, or I guess what is your take on the medical establishment adoption of the transgender hormonal treatments, chemical treatments, surgical treatments, and encouraging young people to go into it? What's your take on doctors who are involved in this process and working with children to do this to themselves?
It's absolutely horrific. I mean, what they're doing to kids, and even, I think even adults sometimes, it's just awful what they're pushing on them. I mean, my parents were actually initially against it. They were okay with me like wearing boys' clothes and cutting my hair short and presenting myself in a different way, but they didn't want me to make that decision to actually do a medical transition until I was legally an adult. But they were scared into it by the doctors. They weren't given any other option. They were told that I would kill myself if I weren't allowed to do this.
We just have a moment or so left. We're talking with Chloe Cole, and we'll give out the website information for Do No Harm and the other groups that you're working with. But what's the future look like for you? I mean, where are you right now after coming back from this? I mean, what's your life like? What are you still dealing with as a result of this?
I'm still dealing with complications from the three main procedures. I had my puberty blocked. I was on testosterone, and at 15, I had a double mastectomy. And from the blockers, I mainly get joint pains and pains in my back. And from the testosterone, I have some issues with my urinary tract, usually having to do with dehydration and sometimes infection. from the surgery, I have some pretty serious complications. They use skin grafts as part of it, and they've started to fail a few years afterward, and I have to wear bandages on my chest now every day. I've been speaking out about my experience transitioning and how it's harmed me as a kid since I was 17, and for the past year or so, I've just been advocating for better standard of care and against transitioning of children.
And what's the way people can follow what you're doing or be in touch with you? Website, social media, anything like that?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram under the username CHOOOCOLE, CHOOCOLE.
All right. And what's the organization? It's called Do No Harm, correct?
Yes.
And where do we find that?
We are on Twitter, and we have our own website as well.
Okay, so just look up Do No Harm. All right, Chloe Cole.
donoharmmedicine.org.
Oh, donoharmmedicine.org. Got it. Okay, great. All right, Chloe, really appreciate you telling your story. I know you're traveling around the country talking to a bunch of lawmakers on this. It looks like there's momentum on the side of pushing back against this happening in the country. Are you hopeful that we can get this banned for those who are under 18?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Chloe, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate you telling your story.
Thank you.
All right, 314-912-1019. Missouri state lawmakers are considering what they're calling right now the SAFE Act, which would ban these procedures for anybody under 18. We'll follow up with this, get your thoughts on it just ahead right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL.
Don't try to make me stop, no inspiration.
Tony Colombo here, inviting you to a great night of live music on Saturday, February 18th as Somebody to Love, a tribute to Queen, plays at Diamond Music Hall in St. Peters. 2 huge sets of music by Somebody to Love, 1 full night of Queen. This show is absolutely incredible, so support local music and mark your calendar now for Saturday, February 18th. Get your tickets at diamondmusichall.com, and I'll see you there. Somebody to Love, a tribute to Queen, brought to you by Weber Chevrolet.
Hey guys, Ken Kruger. I've gotten to know these guys really well over the last few years. Yes, St. Louis Bath and Renovation. They're the most trusted name in bathroom remodelers in the St. Louis area. In fact, if you need bathroom repairs, complete bathroom remodeling, or handyman services, call St. Louis Bath and Renovation at 314-477-6476 or email Rob at stlbr.com. That's St. Louis Bath and Renovation.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
I'm sick of all the firsts. It's after we had the first black president and maybe a couple more first. I'm tired of it.
Now it's the best person.
Yeah, now it's hey, this person is, I think Gabe said, this is the first left-handed transgender person with red hair thing. You know, we're scraping the barrel now for first, so that it doesn't mean anything anymore.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
News commentary.
Balloons, UFOs, derailments, explosions, and more. This administration has the same response to all of it. Ignore it till they can't anymore, then give us some cockamamie BS that tells us nothing. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
Democrats just want to win the next election, and they're trying to do it with ceaseless money printing. They do not care if the value of your retirement is sacrificed. Hi, Stephen K. Bannon. It is critical to protect your retirement right now with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get a free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. There's nothing to buy. and no obligation at all. Text the word SHELTER to 989898 to get a free info kit on gold.
Secretary Pete Buttigieg is showing his ineptitude again, this time a major derailment and accompanying explosion that he's just not up to addressing other than some lame tweets. It was a huge explosion in Ohio, an explosion that now threatens the drinking water, pets, and people. That's just tweet-worthy, Pete. But folks, you know what Pete did have time to address? Racist construction projects. During a conference earlier this week, Pete told the crowd that too many white people are taking up construction jobs in minority communities. There's an explosion in Ohio, and this is what our transportation secretary focuses on? It's one thing to not study for the test, but this is worse than that. These Biden administration hacks won't even take the test. Their strategy is to leave all the bubbles blank and hope we won't notice. Well, we notice. I'm Tommy Lahren.
Talk radio made in St. Louis for St. Louis. This is News Talk STL.
Our responsibility.
News, analysis, and opinion.
To provide updated guidance.
At 1019, 94.1, and newstalkstl.com.
Hey, this is Larry Connors. Make sure you're listening later today at 6 o'clock on News Talk STL for my show, Larry Connors USA. Now, back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
All right, that conversation we just had is going to be posted on the News Talk STL podcast probably within a few hours. Still, probably a few hours, you think, at this point? So I encourage you to give that another listen and also send that out to friends and family. A lot of states, including Missouri, considering a bill to outright ban, meaning, but the parents say they're okay with it. It won't matter. Just like, parents say, you know what, my kid's old enough to drink whiskey. They're 9.
And might I draw a distinction here between our conversation about Senator Josh Hawley?
Yeah.
When the proper role of government is to keep people free, like, this is not about the government co-parenting with the kids. This isn't about social media. This is about children being castrated or otherwise have body modifications that they will never be able to undo. They'll never be able to undo it.
Well, and I noticed, because I did not realize this about Chloe, is that she said she's on the spectrum. I did not actually know that. But when you look at the whistleblower op-ed that was written last week, Jamie Reed pointed out that those particularly young girls who are on the spectrum are some of those who are most vulnerable to this. And they are the ones who, I'll say it, most targeted by this what's become an industry as well. So I kind of just ached. I mean, I've got a daughter who's 24, and the idea that she would be pressured into something like this, go through something like this, and not have the life that she's got and not have the opportunities that she's got because of a decision that was made when she was 14. It's infuriating. I mean, what's happening at these clinics, these transgender centers, what's happening at Washington with the blessing and the endorsement and the enthusiastic support of Washington University, BJC, and the St. Louis Children's Hospital is nothing short of evil. These are monsters in white coats.
Totally agreed. And what's so terrible here, is this not just a common theme that we've seen over the last few years? The people that wear these white coats. I love Gabe's line for them, right?
White coat mafia.
The white coat mafia, because these are the experts speaking from a place of authority and ultimately completely betraying the trust that you have that they're going to give you good counsel instead of actually encouraging these types of transitions at such a young age.
Instead of activist counsel.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Still, you're listening to this really intently. I could see the look on your face. What's going through your mind when you're hearing this 18-year-old young woman, 18, talking about years ago when they started injecting her with puberty blockers, and at 15 having a double mastectomy?
It was painful just listening to it, and my mind went back to when I was that age, and to try to correlate what she is going through with where I was at as a youngster, going through middle school and junior high and high school. The other folks who were good friends of mine, golly, the very, very emotional to think that she's got to struggle with this for the rest of her life, really.
Right. Yeah, the rest of her life, probably multiple surgeries for the rest of her life to deal with the damage that was done by the double mastectomy. I'm not even going to pretend to understand what the chemicals and hormones she was injected with early on what effects those will be later on down the road. I just don't know, but we know there'll be something.
There's a day that I can't remember what they call it, but on Twitter, I saw this a year or 2 years ago. There's a day out of the year where a bunch of people who have detransitioned just start posting their stories on Twitter, and you can find hundreds of them, maybe even thousands of these people that have made these decisions, but then they come back, they try to come back from it, and they can never come back to who they were before because of all these permanent changes that have been done to their bodies.
Well, according to the information that we do have out of the local abuse clinic, there are at least 600 people who have had some form of something treated there. Now, there's no way that the majority of those are full-on castration surgery or double mastectomy surgery, but something has happened, whether it is some sort of counselor to say, oh, yeah, you definitely, or you're really a girl, you need to change your pronouns, or you're really a boy, like what Chloe went through. So hundreds, right here in St. Louis, hundreds by an institution that used to be so well respected, the Ivy League of the Midwest, or whatever it is that Washington University wanted to refer to itself as, but an elitist institution that is doubling down, defending these actions, and they are the ones that are probably going to be lobbying hard against the proposal that Senator Mike Moon in the Missouri legislature has to ban young people from being subjected to this. And again, you turn 18, you become an adult, and you want to do this to yourself, that's a whole separate question. I don't have to like it. I don't have to understand it. I would beg you to reconsider evil and monstrous and the ethics in the government there to even consider protecting young people in that state.
This is also our modern-day Democrat Party who gets behind these types of issues. And
Title IX, when those issues came up in South Dakota, and she just kind of backed off, and I think she eventually came around to standing up for girls and being on the right side regarding no men in women's sports.
Well, one of the reasons for that was because there was I can't remember what it was, but there was some type of collegiate championship game that was supposed to be played in South Dakota. And so this just goes to show you that money talks. And so people will cave, if they think it's going to bring jobs or whatever to their state, instead of doing the right thing that's actually best by the people. And which is why I was saying before, social media changes who can be on social to the money in large.
314-912-1019. Got time to get your thoughts in on this. Also, a man in St. Louis released from prison. He spent the last 28 years behind bars. Now he's a free man. For One News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Hey, it's Katie, reminding you to subscribe to our show podcast so you never miss anything that happens here at News Talk STL. Get our podcasts every day on the show pages at newstalkstl.com or just subscribe.
Organizations raise money for over 30 years to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. A local company helping local people, and there's lots of different ways TJ's can help you raise big money fast. Get started now at tjspizza.com.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language. Like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. And they're designed by real language teachers, so you learn how to have real-world conversations, things you'll actually use.
It's incredible. After using Babbel, I'm ready to start having real conversations in French.
There's all kinds of ways to learn. Use Babbel's podcasts or games or videos. You can even join live classes with a language teacher.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Babbel. Évidemment.
Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Free speech is alive and well in America.
So what's going on?
Right here.
To me, this looks like the run-up to World War II.
News Talk STL.
They're playing with fire. Democrats are destroying the country.
News, analysis, opinion.
Hey, it's Joe Pags. Catch me tonight at 7 o'clock. But right now, back to more of Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
All right, the state locked him up for decades. Does the state, at our expense, taxpayer expense, owe him compensation for all of that time? We're going to talk about that in about 30 seconds. 7:35 right now. I'm Mike Ferguson. Got Paul Kurtman in for Gabe Pfeiffer once again. Gabe Pfeiffer, who's on vacation. Stel Ponticus here as well. Don't forget, the News Talk STL and Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise is bringing you the great event here, Defending America, telling stories that we shouldn't tell. That's going to happen Tuesday, March 14th. I almost said another date, but March 14th. It's going to happen at View 17 on Brentwood Boulevard. If you were at our Douglas Murray event, it's the same place. Really cool place. It is free, but you do need a ticket. So reserve your ticket today. Go to News Talk STL, or you can also find that reservation right there on the News Talk STL app as well. You don't want to miss this one, especially with what's happening with the aerial devices that we're shooting down. I just saw a headline a little bit ago that U.S. fighter jets diverted Russian warplanes off the coast of Alaska in the last 12 hours or so.
4 of them, yeah.
Yeah, and in addition to all of the events happening around the world and how they affect us, Senator Jim Talent and Heritage Foundation's Dakota Wood, Paul, are going to give us their perspectives on that.
It's going to be a great event.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting story out of St. Louis, and I say interesting because we're talking about right to a matter of justice, okay? So what's happened is back in 1995, there was a criminal conviction for a murder, but now basically everybody involved in the murder have changed their story, and they have said that guy who said he was innocent all these years, yeah, it turns out he actually was innocent. Jessica Rosenthal has the report.
Lamar Johnson has insisted he did not kill Marcus Boyd in 1994 in a fight over drug money. While prosecutors said his conviction was fair, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney argued it was not, and Judge David Mason agreed it was not.
It is hereby ordered that the motion of the Circuit Attorney of the 22nd Judicial Circuit filed herein for the benefit of Lamar Johnson is granted.
Johnson appeared emotional at that moment. His girlfriend had testified the night of the murder that Johnson was with her, only leaving for a few minutes to carry out a drug sale. The other man convicted here, Phil Campbell, retracted his claim that Johnson was with him that night and said it was another individual, who then admitted that it was he who was with Campbell during the murder. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Okay, so I want to be as fair as I can be. What you've got here is a guy who says, yeah, I was a drug dealer. So he went out and he was selling some drugs in St. Louis as well. But he didn't commit the murder for which he was convicted, and he was imprisoned for 28 years. So I want to set as fair of a framing of this as I can, guys. I'm not saying this guy was a deacon or a choir boy or anything like that, but he didn't do it, and he was locked up for 28 years when the evidence is pretty overwhelming. He didn't do it. Now the question becomes, does the state of Missouri owe him for taking nearly 60% of his life so far? Because he's 50 years old and he was in prison for 28 years. Is he owed compensation and restitution for having his freedom taken away all this time?
You know, before I was thinking to myself, it all depends on whether or not they just ran a bad investigation. And they would have found out that he wasn't guilty if they would have just done a better job. But now I'm kind of thinking, you know, if the government ever gets anything else wrong, no matter whether or not they were as reasonable about it or not, I think it's likely that the government can do plenty of things wrong to the people. And in those cases, in a case where somebody was harmed like this, there ought to be something available for him or his family.
Yeah, and that's not saying that he's a hero or anything like that. We're just saying that there was an injustice.
Well, 25 years, right?
28.
28 years of his life gone.
Yeah. You're never going to get that back. I mean, Stell, if I back into your car in the parking lot here and I damage your car, I'm expected to make it right, either through my insurance company or through paying for the repair. You may miss out on using your car for a little bit, but I'm expected to make it right as much as I can. Should we expect any less of the state government? By the way, 314-912-1019. I'm curious what everybody thinks about this.
No, I agree with you, and the unjust aspect of 28 years, I still can't get my mind around that.
Right.
to think 28 out of his 50 years were spent behind bars for something like this. It's hard to fathom it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 51.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm basically the same age as this guy. I can't imagine spending, I mean, you're looking at almost 30 years of 50 years. So, I mean, basically you're looking at 57, 58% of your life that was spent in prison for a crime that you did not commit. I mean, maybe there was something he got away with. I don't know. Maybe not. But he didn't do this one.
Well, are they saying he wasn't part of that crime at all? Like he wasn't even there?
Yes.
Okay. See, in a case like that, I would absolutely say if the government got something that wrong. Now, I also understand that these courts go to a trial of your peers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there was a jury that made the decision here. But I guess you'd almost have to go back and it's one thing to be wrong. It's another thing to be wrong because you convinced people knowing that you're really trying to sell them on a bill of goods that wasn't true. I think there needs to be an investigation in how this was able to happen.
Right. Yeah. And the state actually still maintained, the Attorney General's office still maintained, no, this was a clean conviction, and they opposed the effort. And Kimberly Gardner is the one who joined up with the Innocence Project to get the conviction vacated. Now, Kimberly Gardner, I still think, is the most corrupt politician in the state of Missouri.
Yep.
But in this case right here, it looks like her office got this one right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to give her too much credit.
No, I don't
because
I don't want
if
to
you,
either. But do we? Have
I'm just
to
saying. I don't know, because she would say if she had her way, right, she would release everybody from prison.
Absolutely.
So this, I mean, a broken clock's right twice a day, but that doesn't mean it's working right. So it just so happens that if you're going to say, hey, everybody is innocent, well, you're going to catch a couple people that are actually innocent in there. So I don't give Kimberly Gardner any credit for this whatsoever. If he's innocent and there were people working, if the Innocence Project was working on it, then it was probably on its way to happening anyway, because the Innocence Project has been doing great work across the country getting some of these wrongful convictions overturned.
They've actually gotten people off of death row after proactively proving that they did not commit murders. I mean, literally, they've gotten people off of death row for crimes they did not commit. So, yeah, you're probably, matter of fact, I would guess that you're absolutely right in that the Innocence Project was on this. It was probably going to happen anyway. And, of course, Kimberly Gardner, when it comes to criminals, she's so pro-criminal that she doesn't bother to prosecute criminals who are caught red-handed as it is.
And so the difference here between Kimberly Gardner and the Innocence Project is the Innocence Project actually has a pretty high threshold. They understand some people absolutely deserve to be behind bars, but the people that really are innocent, that they investigate first to find out like what's really going on here. Kimberly Gardner she would rather put the police in jail than the criminals.
Oh yeah, no question about that. But now back to Lamar Johnson, though. I mean, is he the guy you want living next door? Well, whatever he was when he was 22. Probably not, since his girlfriend was saying, yeah, he was out dealing drugs, but he wasn't with that guy. He didn't kill anybody. He was just out dealing drugs. Okay, well, you didn't kill anybody, and that's what's at hand right here, but let's not, pretend that they locked up the pastor, in this case. But to me, it's a matter of justice. There was a massive injustice done. It doesn't matter what I think of the person to whom it was done. There was a massive injustice done, and this is about holding government accountable.
That's actually a really good point. I mean, the whole point of the justice system is obviously to execute justice. But if they themselves, and I'm used they as the justice system, if are guilty of committing an injustice, whether they meant to or not, there needs to be justice for that injustice, even when it's committed by the Justice Department.
Yeah, there was a similar case in the western side of the state over in Kansas City as well, where the current prosecuting attorney in Jackson County came across a case, and I don't remember whether the Innocence Project was involved in this one or not, but they found that somebody was convicted who should never have been prosecuted, and that person was set free after many years in prison as well. This is the exception to the rule, but it does happen, and it happens probably more than we'd like to admit, and I think it is an important part of justice for us to trust the process and trust the system. I think that they need to make it right when things have gone wrong and unjust in a lot of different ways. So I actually think there's a moral obligation for the system itself to police itself and say the goal here is justice. The goal isn't just convictions and incarcerations. The goal is actually justice.
Right.
because it's really a failure of the judicial system.
Yeah.
And you're right. There needs to be an investigation. What exactly is going on here? And why are these people being convicted and losing 2/3 of their lives behind bars when this should have been taken care of 15, 20 years ago?
Right. Yeah, because it's been years in the works for all these appeals.
Yeah.
In this particular case as well. All right, 314-912-1019. Does the state of Missouri owe Lamar Johnson compensation for all those years in prison? Let me know what you think. Also, just ahead here, which states are the most sinful? Who's more sinful, Illinois or Missouri? Who do you think?
Illinois, by far.
Think they're more
yeah.
sinful? All right.
Oh, man.
Stell, who's more sinful?
Oh, yeah, I go with my home state of Illinois. Yep.
All right. I've got the list. I'll tell you who just ahead right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, 99.1 HD3 and newstalkstl.com. Columbo and Katie.
Got a busy Wednesday coming your way. We'll talk to the insider's insider of local politics, Rodney Boyd, at 2:20, and we'll open up Close's cabinet with Mark Close and Skip Weber at 3:05.
Weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL.
Michael's Flooring Outlet is a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years, featuring exclusive products, unbeatable prices, and expert installation. You can choose from a wide variety of flooring options, including carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, plus many other options. And you'll gain a peace of mind knowing that your flooring and carpet installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in-store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home online. Check out everything Michael's Flooring has to offer at igotfloored.com.
Hey, it's Vic. Everyone here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth in our business during the first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Southern Armory, Rhino Shield, Steph's Pizza, and the Walner team that have become one of our many advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. We have a wide variety of affordable advertising options. And thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Life insurance is one of those things that just about everybody needs, but few people actually have. Hey, if you die unexpectedly without life insurance, guess what? You'll leave your family with even a bigger mess. Life insurance will help replace your family's income. It'll help cover burial expenses. Life insurance can even help pay off debt like credit cards and medical bills. Life insurance can even pay for college. And if you own a business and you die, life insurance can help your business from collapsing. It can even help cover estate taxes. Life insurance has never been more affordable and needed. Plus, you can always shop around even if you have a plan and save some money. So call the Life Insurance Quote Line right now for free pricing information.
800-979-3060. 800-979-3060. 800-979-3060. That's 800-979-3060.
Whether at home or at work, you're mobile. So when you're mobile, stay mobile. Keep St. Louis's home for conservative talk with you wherever you go. Download the News Talk STL app in the App Store or at newstalkstl.com.
Hi, this is Kira Davis from redstate.com, and you're listening to Mike Ferguson in the Morning on News Talk STL.
All right, Paul says Illinois is more sinful than Missouri as a state. Stell says, I've lived in both.
Yeah, I'll go with Illinois.
Who do you think's the most sinful state out there?
Out of all 50?
All 50.
Ooh.
New York. New York.
Okay. Guessing New York. All right. I will tell you that.
I was going to say California, but go ahead.
Oh, it's a state.
State.
Okay.
The most.
California.
Okay. Both of you say California?
Yep.
I will tell you that they're in the top 5.
Okay.
Both of those states are in the top 5?
California is in the top 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with something that nobody would expect.
Okay.
Louisiana.
Interesting. All right. I've got the whole list right here.
Okay.
All right. It is 7:49 right now. That's Paul Kurtman in for Gabe Pfeiffer, who's decided to leave us for a little bit because he wants to take his wife to Hawaii, whatever.
Oh, whatever.
Oh, well, then in that case, now Hawaii is the most sinful.
Oh, man. It's still Ponticus is here as well. My name is Mike Ferguson. Okay, so the folks over at Wallet Hub were having some fun, and they took the 7 deadly sins, okay? and they decided to categorize them and look at some data regarding this. So here's what they did. They looked at crime rates when you look at like wrath and, for violence and stuff, theft rates for jealousy. When it came to gluttony, they looked at how much fast food demand there is and fast food joints everywhere. When it comes to greed, they looked at the number of casinos and other betting type establishments. Lust, obviously, use of pornography, as much as you can track that. Vanity, plastic surgery, how much plastic surgery is happening out there. And then for sloth, they ranked people as far as the amount of exercise rates, whether it's gym membership or surveys on how much people are. So that's how they decided who is the most and least sinful, just based on the 7 deadly sins.
Boy, I would love to pick a sleeper state, like Idaho or Utah or
Nebraska.
Wyoming. Yeah, Nebraska. As opposed to the
South Dakota.
Exactly.
There you go. I mean, they got nothing else to do, right? I mean,
right.
Come up with some vice. Okay, so the number one most sinful state in the country, Nevada.
Well, if you do something in Vegas, it's supposed to stay there. So
that's right.
Okay.
And it's all there.
I could say, I almost went with that state just because of Las Vegas.
That's why it's number one.
Yep.
So I guess Carson City as well, but primarily Las Vegas. You've got an entire incredibly fast-growing metropolitan area, basically based on sin.
Only in Las Vegas, really. It's not like people are moving there for anything. Well, I don't know why people move there, but I mean, like when you think of, is it Nevada? Mm-hmm. When you think of Nevada, you think of Las Vegas.
Right.
That's really the first thing that comes to mind. And what do people go there for? Gambling. And everything else that kind of goes along with that type of entertainment.
Yeah, I spent a week there back in 2008 when I was working on the presidential campaign. So there was a big conference there that the congressman and I and some other staff members were at. And so we were out there, and there were a few things I wish I had time to go see. As far as like the London cast of Phantom was there that week, and so there's always a few things you can find, but for the most part, I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. I don't really need to see it again. I don't care to ever go back. It just wasn't my thing.
Well, Cirque du Soleil, maybe.
Cirque du Soleil was there, yeah.
Yeah, Bellagio.
Yeah.
Or some of the artists who were there for a month or 2 months, yeah.
The Pawn Shop from Pawn Stars on the History Channel. That's kind of that's a place you got to visit now, I think.
A few years later, Def Leppard did a residency there. I would have definitely gone to see that. And even Cirque du Soleil, they've got a couple different versions of that. There's a couple versions that you got to be 18 to get into.
Okay.
I played a little joke on my mom once when I was out there. It's funny. I was staying at the Luxor, which is the pyramid, the big black pyramid. If you ever watch CSI, that's like featured in the opening. I was there, and they almost all those places have like topless review shows and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny. My mom, of course, my dad was a Baptist pastor. I mean, he was like your dad and my dad, I think, were like theological twins. And so my mom said, I was looking at that hotel, and she goes, oh my goodness, they have a show of like topless women just dancing. What is and the funny part was I went, yeah, Mom, you know what's really frustrating about that is that the girls in the show aren't the same ones on the poster. Long pause. I'm like, I'm kidding, Mom. I don't.
But Paul,
I bet
you're
she
right.
loves your sense of humor.
She did not enjoy my sense of humor on that particular one right there.
You're right, Paul. You don't think of the other cities like Reno and Carson City and the other ones.
You never do.
In Nevada, because everybody always says Las Vegas. And I can think of numerous friends of mine from here who go to Vegas specifically at certain times of the year because they want to bet on stuff, whether it's a Super Bowl or March Madness or baseball or whatever. That's the place they want to go to.
I've heard people say, what state is Las Vegas in? Like, they know Las Vegas. Like, St. Louis, Missouri. Chicago, Illinois. But for Las Vegas, everybody, it's kind of like that one celebrity who's got just the one name. You don't know their last name. That's like Las Vegas. Like, that's you just think about Las Vegas and you don't think about everything else in the state.
You want to confuse people from the East and West Coast? Ask them what city Kansas City's in. Because there are a lot of people that say Kansas, and it's not in Kansas. All right, the number 2 most sinful city, you guys both actually guessed this, California.
State, you mean?
The state. State. Yeah, I'm sorry, the state, yeah.
I bet it's a close second.
Probably. Yeah, probably is. What was your sleeper pick, Paul?
Louisiana.
Number 3.
No way.
Whoa. Number 3.
See? Wow, man.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed New Orleans just because of all the music. New Orleans I was not there for Mardi Gras or anything, but, I walked down Decatur and Bourbon Streets. I'd never seen an entire city with a hangover before. That was interesting. But the Zydeco and the blues and the jazz, man, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Is that okay? I know you're going to go through the rest of the list.
Yeah.
But I was trying to decide whether I should pick Louisiana or Alabama. I went with Louisiana. I'm interested to know if Alabama's even on the list.
Alabama is not in the top 10.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm curious, why Alabama?
So I used to go to college in Florida.
Okay.
And I would drive whenever I drive south, I'd go through Alabama. Great state, beautiful, love it. But man, when you get to Mobile, my goodness, like you want to be careful. And that's just my that's just my own experience going through Mobile, which I would do at least 6 or 7 times a year. I've only had to stay there a couple times, but maybe I was just in the wrong part. But Mobile.
Well, Bob Dylan said
made me nervous.
Stuck inside a Mobile with the Memphis Blues again. So I think you're right.
Believe it or not, number 4 most sinful was Florida.
I believe it.
Yeah, okay.
I believe it, but maybe not for the permanent residents, but maybe because it is a spring break destination and lots happens during spring break.
That's for sure.
That's true. All right, so let me make sure I got time to give the least sinful. The most sinful top 10 includes Pennsylvania, Texas, Tennessee, and Illinois.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where does Illinois rank?
Illinois ranks the 8th most sinful in the country.
Okay.
This next one really surprised me. Number 9 was South Carolina. That I've been to South Carolina. I don't know why that's like that. Unless like the food, the gluttony really pushed them up. But I never thought of South Carolina.
Where do they rank?
Number 9.
Okay. Every time I see someone from South Carolina, I'm going to be like, what are you really like? Because I would not have expected them to be the most sinful.
Yeah. And then New York State, number 10. Least sinful, Wyoming.
Yeah, okay. I believe it.
Yeah. Idaho. I think one of you all said Idaho for the. New Hampshire, Vermont, Iowa, Connecticut, South Dakota, Utah, Nebraska, and Maine.
All these places are places where people eat vanilla ice cream for dessert. Nothing else.
That's right. Nothing else. Missouri, 23. We are like right in the middle. We are average sinfulness for the entire country. Whatever that means.
Now let's rank each other.
Oh,
no,
I probably lose.
News, analysis, opinion.
What China did was completely unacceptable and a real threat to American sovereignty.
They're a nation now that has abandoned sovereignty. We do not know the origin of any of these objects. This is News Talk STL.
Shooting down a balloon.
What's gone on the last 10 days has been nothing short of craziness.
It's a violation of national law. It's our airspace.
The southern border is no longer enforced. Look at how China could fly a spy balloon over our country. What's next?
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL and newstalkstl.com.
Hi, Jen Wallner here. As a former foster child myself, I have always been an advocate for foster children in our community. Angels Arms is an amazing organization that provides a stable, nurturing, and loving family environment for these children. They ensure these children have not only the childhood they deserve, but the resources needed to become successful, thriving adults. I truly believe that this organization is transforming lives, and I could not be more proud to be a small part of that accomplishment. For more information or to get involved, visit angelsarms.org.
For adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy, now there's Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months, and Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Nothing and me go hand in hand. Nothing on my skin, that's my new plan. Nothing is every day.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms, such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
With Skyrizi, you could achieve 90% clearer skin. Ask your doctor about the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. Residents of East Palestine may get at least some of the answers they've been desperately seeking this evening.
The Ohio village upended by a train derailment and the intentional burning of hazardous chemicals on board is inviting residents to a town hall meeting this evening to discuss lingering questions. And there are plenty about the huge plumes of smoke, persisting odors, reports of sick and dying animals, and contaminated water. Rail operator Norfolk Southern says it's offering financial help to the community of some 4,700 people while continuing remediation work. Tasha Stevens reporting.
Why did a gunman open fire on the Michigan State University campus in East Lansing? Police still don't have an answer. The motive is unknown. The gunman took his own life after fatally shooting 3 MSU students, wounding 5 others. President Biden again denouncing violence involving the use of firearms, and he is again calling for tighter gun control. Well, there's been no lack of speculation. U.S. officials still know precious little about the 3 airborne objects shot down last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
The National Security Council here at the White House says it's not likely the objects were gathering intelligence on the U.S., and they didn't appear to be part of China's spy balloon program. No country or private company has come forward to claim any of the objects, and the current theory is those objects were harmless.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston. She's calling it a career. Senator Dianne Feinstein of California will not be seeking re-election. The 89-year-old Democrat has served more than 30 years in Congress. Former South Carolina Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has an event planned today in Charleston. She'll be formally launching her bid for the GOP presidential nomination. On Wall Street, Dow futures down 93 points and NASDAQ futures off 37. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Relief factor, pain relief that's natural, pain relief that works, and pain relief that attacks the source of the pain. That's the experience of tens of thousands of Americans who are taking Relief Factor right now. See their incredible video endorsements at relieffactor.com and then order your 3-week quick starter pack for just $19.95. That's less than $1 a day. Find out if it can work for you like it works for me by ordering your 3-week quick starter pack today. relieffactor.com, relieffactor.com. Be the next success story.
Angie's List is now Angie, and we've heard a lot of theories about why.
I thought it was an eco move. Fewer words, less paper.
No, it was so you could say it faster.
No, it's to be more iconic.
Must be a tech thing. But those aren't quite right. It's because now you can compare upfront prices, book a service instantly, and even get your project handled from start to finish.
Sounds easy.
It is, and it makes us so much more than just a list. Get started at Angie.com. That's ANGI, or download the app today.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Beautiful day on tap. Lots of sunshine today after lows in the 40s this morning to near 50 degrees. The high this afternoon, 62. A dry day. A little breezy this morning, but the winds will taper off a little bit as we go through the day. Still a breeze, but it should be nice. Overnight lows tonight in the mid-40s, and then the temperatures crash tomorrow into the mid-30s by the early evening hours and 20s overnight tomorrow night. We are looking at showers and thunderstorms tonight. There could be a few strong storms well south of St. Louis. It does look dry on Thursday, but breezy and turning much colder. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by The Dental Link. Call Dr. Alan Link today, 314-794-6464 to schedule your free consultation. Offices in Baldwin and Melville, 314-794-6464.
Report cards are a good way to show how well your kids are doing in class and where they might need improvement. We at the Show Me Institute believe schools should get grades too, so parents can see how their child's school compares to others. That's why we came up with the Missouri School Rankings Project. Click on the website moschoolrankings.org and it's all there. Rankings and letter grades for all the schools in Missouri. The rankings are based on categories such as student performance in English language arts and math, ACT scores, and graduation rates. Then we take the rankings and come up with a grade point average, just like your child has. Each school and district has a grade, and the website is easy to use. And now we've added spending data for every district, so parents, taxpayers, and policymakers can see where the money is going. Don't you want to know how your child's school stacks up? Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
What citizen wouldn't want to make America great again?
Live and local.
And their leadership has been substandard.
I think the word substandard is immensely polite.
This is News Talk STL. Mike Ferguson.
Just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right.
Gabe Pfeiffer.
I love Jesus. He was my superhero.
Get up! Can't you hear the alarm?
Twitter is like being able to read every toilet wall in the world.
Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL. Get up! This is your cousin.
Okay, interesting question. Had a couple thoughts on this that were posted on the Rumble chat box as well. But 314-912-1019. We harangue social media companies a lot. They're biased. My wife was actually, I mentioned she was thrown into Twitter jail last week because she posted comments on recent studies that showed a high correlation of those emotional comorbidities with young people who are sucked into this trans thing. And she got put in Twitter jail for that. So Elon Musk has not got a handle on all of his censors. She got in trouble with Facebook yesterday. So on Valentine's Day, she has this graphic that she found somebody made Valentine's cards from like the world's worst dictators. And they're hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. And she posted that. And for the first time, she got in trouble with Facebook. And they actually deleted it and sent her a warning and everything. It was just...
That's so bizarre.
It was really weird. So social media, we beat up on social media a lot, and they deserve it. But at the same time, whose job is it to monitor social media? Josh Hawley gets a lot of stuff right. When he's in the Senate, particularly when it comes to national security and foreign policy, I think he's right most of the time. I'm never going to say he's right all of the time, but I think most of the time. But I think he's really wrong on what he wants government to do and the law he wants passed regarding social media. Jillian Turner from Fox News points out that there's something that Josh Hawley and President Joe Biden actually agree on.
This Senate panel is looking at the question of how young is simply too young for social media. Something that emerged right off the bat is how much worse the effects of social media are for girls. 13 is the age at which Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook allow kids onto their platforms. The Surgeon General, though, infamously said he believes that is way too young. President Biden himself weighed in. He said he agrees with that assessment.
We have to pass legislation on the damaging technology that's having an effect on our kids.
Senator Josh Hawley, though, is really leading the charge right now. He's got a proposal that bans social media for all kids in America under age 16.
So your 12-year-old sneaks in Facebook a year early, or they wait until they're 13, which I think is what Facebook's requirement is, and set up a social media account under this law, criminal. Against the law.
We can't even stop kids from buying alcohol illegally. I don't know what makes them think that a law is somehow going to keep a motivated 15-year-old from getting his own social media account.
It won't. You're right.
But there ought to be a law.
If laws could fix everything, then let's write a law for everything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work, and I think it is a terrible thing to even try to do something that says what Josh Hawley's signaling here is government has the answers for families and for parents.
That's exactly what he's saying. Here's a clip from the actual hearing, and he's responding to a woman who was given testimony about her son who I don't know if he hurt himself or if he died because of things that were said or something that came from social media interactions. But here's Senator Hawley arguing for, well, exactly what you just said.
As a father myself, when you say things like, well, the parents really ought to be educated. Listen, the kid's ability, and I bet you had this experience, Ms. Bright, the kid's ability to figure out how to set what's on this phone. My 10-year-old knows more about this phone than I know about it already. What's going to be like in another 4 years or 5 or 6 years like your son, Ms. Bride? So I just say as a parent, it would put me much more in the driver's seat if the law was you couldn't have a phone. I'm sorry, you couldn't get on social media till 16. I mean, that would help me as a parent. So that's why I'm proposing it. Parents are in favor of it. I got the idea from parents who came to me and said, please help us. Please help us. And listen, I'm all for tech training. It's great. But I just don't think that's going to cut it. So I've introduced legislation to do it. Let's keep it simple. Let's put this power in the hands of parents. I'd start there.
This sounds like big government co-parenting your child with Uncle Sam.
Did he
to me.
just wrap that up by saying, let's keep it simple, let's put power back in the hands of parents?
Yes.
What's going on here? He's introducing legislation to take power away from parents. And I don't know why Josh Hawley thinks that his 10-year-old son knows more about his phone than he does. And what's going to fix it is a law.
Yeah, federal law.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. This is where I start getting a little on fire. And this is the way I wish people felt like I felt about this when it comes to big government. I'm not in it for the drama and because I like going to little conservative clubs or anything. I am one of those people, ideologically, philosophically, I have a chip on my shoulder for people trying to tell me how to live my life. That's why the Constitution's valuable to me, because it's supposed to stop people from telling me how I want to live my life, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. But in this case, this is hurting my ability to parent however I want. And just because Josh Hawley's son might use social media and it might affect him negatively, doesn't mean that it's going to be the same way for me. And maybe I want my 15-year-old to have a social media account, and I just monitor it. I have a 7-year-old who looks up, he can spell more dinosaurs than I've ever even heard of, and he's 7. And we have a computer in the living room, and we allow him to use the computer because he has a love of learning. And we watch and we monitor and we tell him, you're not allowed to just Google anything unless you come to mom and dad first. You got to ask us what you want to do. And we watch it. It's in the living room, and we have a very open floor plan. We can always see it. And I don't need Josh Hawley to tell me that I need a law to stop my son from doing anything bad or being negatively impacted by anything online.
But wouldn't it be easier if you just turned it over to the federal government? They'll do that for you.
If I turn over to the federal government how I raise my kids, you know what's going to happen? Everything that's happening at Washington University is likely to happen because we can't trust them with that.
Like Ronald Reagan said, if somebody comes up to you and says, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help, we're in trouble. And it's exactly what Josh is saying. I'm here from the government. I'm here to help. No, I'm sorry. I don't think it works that way.
On the Rumble chat box, Goat Lady says, Hawley is wrong on this one. It's not government's job to police children. I 100% agree. This is, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday on something else, there is a movement within the Republican Party of big government, either republicanism or big government conservatism, and this is big government sort of republicanism.
Josh Hawley is incredibly smart, incredibly articulate. I wish he would be as passionate about federal spending as he is about whether or not parents are letting their 15-year-old get an Instagram account. I wish he was more concerned about federal spending. I wish he was as passionate about the board. I'm not saying he doesn't touch these issues, but the thing is, what seems like what he wants to kind of like make his name for in 2023, kind of his claim to fame right now, at least right now, this is kind of the issue, is it's all about social media or instituting price caps, which is anti-free market. I mean, if he was as passionate about releasing regulations and expiring all these archaic regulations so more people could participate in the market, we wouldn't need any price caps. If he was as passionate about personal and economic freedom as he is about telling parents what they can and can't do with their own kids, then we would have a much better path forward in the U.S. Senate.
And like you said about your 7-year-old, who seems to be very mature for her age, there are probably tons of families who have mature 10, 12, 13-year-olds who could easily handle being online and having social media accounts. And then you have the other ones who are totally immature. Let the parent decide.
And I don't want to sound too harsh on Josh, because like you said, Mike, he does a lot of great things. But this is one of those things I'm like, what in the world are you thinking? This goes against everything that conservatives believe, where the government's supposed to start getting involved in the home.
Yeah, and this is one of those areas where we should be the ones leading the pushback. This is the type of law that Bernie Sanders or Cory Booker, I mentioned earlier, or Rashida Tlaib would be comfortable presenting and running the lead on. And we would lose our minds if a liberal came out and said, you know what we need to do? We need to ban kids off of social media. We'd be talking about big government. We'd be talking about intrusive government. And so we need to be pushing back in the same way just because somebody has an R behind their name doesn't mean they get a pass when they push big government in this case, even if they're a friend on the majority of issues. I think, personally.
Yeah. By the way, if I can ask this question here, a little bit related. If anybody's had this issue come up on Facebook, I noticed last night, all of a sudden I'm going through my feed, and I'm getting this little cover thing on different stories from my friends, and it says when you view your friend's story, they'll be able to see that you viewed it. Really? And then you have to click on that in order to get the actual feed.
Oh, it's
the
Facebook?
Yeah, it's on Facebook.
Oh,
I thought,
okay.
what is up with that? And it shows up sporadically through the feed. That never showed up before, so I'm just wondering.
Stories in a while, so I'll have to check to see. I'm curious whether, I'm sure if it popped up on yours, I'm sure it'll pop up on mine. I don't know what that means other than somebody says, hey, you saw my story and you didn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm busy, or your story was boring. That's one of the ways
but you're right. Maybe it's tripped off from the other end,
Yeah.
where they want to see who views it.
Well, and this is one of those areas where we tend to conflate, and I know we got to get to an information break here in a second, but we conflate this is a really bad idea with there ought to be a law. I think there's a lot of stuff you got to protect kids from on social media. And for a lot of kids, it's probably a bad idea for them to be on social media, especially really young. That doesn't mean that there should be a law. There's two separate questions. What's a good idea or a bad idea? What should kids have access to? And what the federal government should outlaw.
And here's the thing, too. Like, there's a lot of kids. My wife was a teacher for several years. And kind of one thing that's kind of become a little bit of a thing is schools using social media where they'll like have a Facebook group for a class and kids will go and they'll. So, I mean, what are you going to do? You're gonna get rid of all that. There's a lot of good things that happen even for kids on social media. But you write a law to do this. I mean, exactly what is that law going to look like? Do you know how intrusive you have to get? You have to literally start micromanaging every aspect of people's lives in order to carve out, well, when is it good and when is it bad? And when can you use it and when can you not? And it is opening a can of worms that the government should not be opening. And I don't care if it's a congressman, I don't care if it's a senator, I don't care if Ronald Reagan tried to do this. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, 314-912-1019. We being too hard on one of our own? What do you think? Let me know. Comment or give me a call. 314-912-1019. Also have a review and update on a lot of the big news stories happening around St. Louis right here on 1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Don't try to make me stop. No inspiration.
Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Hey, Columbo here for Zero Res. February is the month for love, but when was the last time you gave your carpet the love it deserves? Your carpet is the largest air filter in your home, so if it hasn't been cleaned, you're breathing unhealthy levels of germs. But Zero Res can help. If you book a cleaning now and mention the Columbo special, you'll get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $119, plus they'll clean a hallway for free and take $75 off an air duct cleaning. This month only, so book now, 314-474-2020 or online at ZeroResSTL.com.
Columbo and Katie.
Mark Lauder, Chief Communications Officer at the America's First Policy Institute.
It doesn't matter whether it's Trump, Pence, DeSantis, Pompeo, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, all the names that have been rumored about, aside obviously Donald Trump has announced, they're all going to be running on the same policies.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all going to be running on what I like to call America First policy.
Tony Columbo, Katie Fitzpatrick. Weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL.
What if everything you thought and believed to be true about owning and buying your home turned out to be wrong?
Straightforward, objective advice on the right way to make the most out of every dollar you put into your home.
We're the only country that has one of those. Most other countries, considering like Canada, the UK, they don't have long-term fixed-rate mortgages like that. They're all variable-rate mortgages.
HomeWise with Michael Midget. Sunday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. News commentary.
Balloons, UFOs, derailments, explosions, and more. This administration has the same response to all of it. Ignore it till they can't anymore, then give us some cockamamie BS that tells us nothing. I'm Tommy Lahren. More next.
Democrats just want to win the next election, and they're trying to do it with ceaseless money printing. They do not care if the value of your retirement is sacrificed. Hi, Stephen K. Bannon. It is critical to protect your retirement right now with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get a free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. There's nothing to buy and no obligation at all. Text the word SHELTER to 989898 to get a free info kit on gold.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is showing his ineptitude again, this time a major derailment and accompanying explosion that he's just not up to addressing other than some lame tweets. It was a huge explosion in Ohio, an explosion that now threatens the drinking water, pets, and people. That's just tweet-worthy, Pete? But folks, you know what Pete did have time to address? Racist construction projects. During a conference earlier this week, Pete told the crowd that too many white people are taking up construction jobs in minority communities. There's an explosion in Ohio, and this is what our transportation secretary focuses on? It's one thing to not study for the test, but this is worse than that. These Biden administration hacks won't even take the test. Their strategy is to leave all the bubbles blank and hope we won't notice. Well, we notice. I'm Tommy Lahren.
Subscribe and watch your favorite News Talk STL shows. Mike Ferguson in the Morning, The Vic Porcelli Show, Columbo and Katie, Jones and Arps. Webcam streaming on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. Subscribe and watch News Talk STL. Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love.
Okay, so there are a lot going on here. Let me try to cover a lot of different things. Now, we're going to get more information about this, but now we've got reports coming out of Washington, D.C. that U.S. fighter jets diverted, whatever that means, diverted Russian fighter jets over the or near the coast of Alaska. That's about all the information that I've got at this point. But that is not a good sign right there. Hopefully that was some kind of mistake, but I don't think anything like that is anymore. All right, in other news here, by the way, hi, I'm Mike. That's Paul over there in for Gabe, and Stell's here as well. It is 8:21. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is requesting documents from Hunter Biden's lawyers as part of an oversight investigation into the Biden family financial affairs, not just Hunter, but the whole family. He was on with Hannity last night on Fox News.
There are two things every American's going to realize at the conclusion of our investigation, and that's number one, that multiple members of the Biden family were involved in the influence peddling schemes. And number two, most of these big deals were initiated during Joe Biden's term as vice president.
And, of course, the president still says, I didn't know anything about what he was doing in business. That was his thing. I had no idea, Paul. He just didn't know. That's his story, and he's sticking to it.
Liar. I mean, I don't know what else we can say. There's so much evidence out there to the contrary.
So many photographs. Yes.
There's so much.
Emails. Yes.
But this is what happens, right? You get these politicians. They think they're entitled to lie to the people, and so they just gaslight. It's a regular occurrence. It's like nobody has any respect or commitment to the truth, even people within the Republican Party, because it's just about protecting the party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and gaslighting is the perfect term, especially from the Biden administration right now. It is a daily dose of gaslighting is all we're getting from this particular White House. All right, following up the tragic situation at Michigan State University, we're learning more now about the man who killed 3 people, injured 5 others before taking his own life in that deadly shooting that happened overnight on Monday at Michigan State University. Fox News' Jeff Manasso has that story.
Records show 43-year-old Anthony Dwayne McCray with at least one run-in with the law. He was arrested in Lansing in 2019, pled guilty to possession of a loaded firearm, and as part of a plea deal was sentenced to probation. He's said to have killed himself after Monday's deadly rampage.
We still are in the process of putting together the pieces to try to understand what happened and why it may have happened.
MSU Deputy Police Chief Chris Rossman, McCray's family members also describing him as mentally ill who lived a life of seclusion. We're told police in Lansing were also called for a welfare check for McCray just days before the mass shooting. That is now part of the ongoing investigation. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And so there are a lot of layers here where something went wrong, but ultimately the madman who committed the murders is the one responsible for them. But at the same time, there was an ability to convict him and prosecute him and put him behind bars, and the prosecutor in that area just simply chose not to do it. Yeah.
Say that last part again.
The prosecutor, when he was charged with a crime before, just chose not to do it. Let him have a kind of a watered down plea deal, keep him out of prison. They chose not to prosecute him, set him back out on the streets.
Yeah, I'm all for prosecutorial discretion because sometimes
Yep.
prosecutors need to be able to make decisions. Hey, let's pursue this, but not this. But I mean, when their discretion is, hey, let's not pursue justice.
Right.
You're gonna wind up getting more of the same.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to hear more. Pardon me. I'm going to have to just interrupt the live broadcast here. Get a little bit of water there. Sorry. And so this is one of those cases where soft on crime and pro-criminal policies that are so embraced by the left have very real world consequences. And I don't want to politicize a tragedy like this, but we are seeing, the other side already making that argument, which is something I wish we didn't have to do, but that's what's happening right now.
I think eventually we're going to see this huge backlash from all this wokeness and this warped, twisted sense of justice. I don't know if you heard about this, but did you know that the Scottish leader, Nicola Sturgeon?
Yeah.
She just quit because from the government, right, pushing like this woke agenda, and the people just rebelled. I think eventually we'll see that in America as more criminals are released, for the woke agenda, just letting people go. Because, eventually people are going to just kind of take these matters into their own hands, either at the ballot box or elsewhere, preferably at the ballot box. But people are just getting tired of criminals being released. And like we've seen it in St. Louis, we're seeing it in other parts of the country.
Yeah, that's interesting because in Scotland, I've been to Scotland, and, that's my family heritage is Scottish. We came over here from Scotland in the 1700s. And they're socially far more what we would call liberal. Of course, in Europe, liberal just means more pro-freedom. But by ours definition, they're more liberal on social issues. But they do not like being told what to do, and they don't like nonsense.
Yeah, well,
in Scotland.
And this issue that she resigned over was her lax laws on transgender injustice. So they sent a male rapist to a female prison because he decided to identify as a woman. So we'll send him to a women prison. What a stupid thing to do. But this is what the woke ideology does, and it perverts and twists the whole idea of justice. And so over in Scotland, she's stepping down. She's pretty much done for because the people have just had enough. I think eventually we'll see that in America, but I feel like in America it could get a lot worse before it starts getting better.
Yeah, I was just, when you were about to say that, that's what I was thinking was how bad does it have to be before the pushback becomes immediate and really, really forceful? We are seeing some aspects of the pushback, but there's so much of the far left, the hard left, still trying to hold on to the progress that they have made away from everything that's frankly good and decent.
In almost every other country in the world except America, right? They still hold on to like their ethnic identity, their cultural identity, their heritage. But in the U.S., all the diversity that we have become points of division. And so I think that it could actually get a lot worse.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the moral cesspit that is Washington University and their medical establishment absolutely refused to do the right thing. We know there was an answer coming to Attorney General Andrew Bailey, and the institution rejects his request for a moratorium on hormonal and surgical procedures on confused children. The university says that they're going to add oversight. So, guys, oversight to their so-called transgender clinic. So I guess we're supposed to feel somewhat better about their abuse of children. They absolutely refuse to stop injecting young children with these hormones and puberty blockers and other chemicals and doing surgeries, calling it critical care for those in need.
It's the government stance. It's a stance of our federal government. It's as though they're mimicking whatever Washington is saying about this issue, in my viewpoint.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Paul gives me the eye like,
I'm like,
because everything we've heard from the administration on so many other issues, including this one, is the same thing that we're hearing from WashU. We'll just keep doing what we're doing. We don't care what you think.
Yeah, and this right here is a perverse moral statement by Washington University. And their chancellor signed this letter back to Andrew Bailey. Their chancellor, the leadership at Washington University says, we believe fully in this abuse of the children. Of course, they call it critical medical care. They acknowledge that these children are dealing with gender dysphoria. They use the words in the letter. back, but they absolutely refuse, saying, but we're the only place in Missouri where children can get these treatments. Well, that's one too many.
Well, let's talk about Andrew Bailey here for a minute, because what's he going to do now? Because he's an attorney general that was appointed by Governor Parson. He wasn't elected to this position, but the attorney general's office is an office that by and large Republicans have used to establish their conservative credentials. So it's one thing to write a letter, but what's he going to do now? And this is going to be a really sticking point for him, because he's in a campaign. He's running for attorney general. Is he going to be an attorney general that just sends a letter and says, you guys need to stop this, you need to, and then, oh no, we're not going to do it. Oh, well, I tried. Or is he going to actually go further and see what he can do, what his office can do to actually make Washington University stop? So this could actually erupt into a much larger legal battle between Washington University and our attorney general, and the pressure's on Andrew Bailey to actually make that happen. Otherwise, Republican voters are going to see him as weak on these issues.
I don't understand how, even if they're wearing lab coats, even if they're wearing medical coats, how in the hell is this not considered child abuse? I mean, how is this not debilitating child abuse of young children? How is this not a criminal offense?
So if I was Andrew Bailey, here's what I'd be doing. I'd be working with the legislature right now to pass laws that give him the authority, or otherwise create a law that he can then use in a courtroom to give him standing in a courtroom to go after Washington University for doing this. So if Andrew Bailey is the Attorney General of the state of Missouri, if he doesn't have the authority now to do anything, he needs to be working with the legislature to do it, because we can stand here and say, how is this not criminal abuse? But the thing is this is such a relatively new issue that it might just kind of be open in the law, because we've put all of our trust and confidence in all these experts to say this is what needs to be done. It's critical care. So we'll see what he does with the legislature this over the session.
All right, 314-912-1019. Get your thoughts on that. Also, the Blues won last night 6-2 over Florida. They're now basically right back at 500. Got time to get your thoughts on this. 314-912-1019. I think people should be going to jail over it.
Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning.
You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price, I know.
If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
The far left wants to destroy conservative values in America.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Beautiful day on tap. Lots of sunshine today after lows in the 40s this morning to near 50 degrees. The high this afternoon, 62. A dry day. A little breezy this morning, but the winds will taper off a little bit as we go through the day. Still a breeze, but it should be nice. Overnight lows tonight in the mid-40s, and then the temperatures crash tomorrow into the mid-30s by the early evening hours and 20s overnight tomorrow night. We are looking at showers and thunderstorms tonight. There could be a few strong storms well south of St. Louis. It does look dry on Thursday, but breezy and turning much colder. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This is Rob with St. Louis Bathroom Renovation, and we'd like to let you know you don't have to maintain the grout in your home anymore. The grout on the floor or in your shower or bath area. How would you like zero grout in your bathroom? At St. Louis Bathroom Renovation, we focus on grout-free options for your bathroom. If you hate cleaning grout, St. Louis Bathroom Renovation, 314-477-6476. 314-477-6476. Give us a call.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-649-8619.
800-649-8619. 800-649-8619. That's 800-649-8619.
This is News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, and we're proud to be the official winter weather source for News Talk STL. The First Alert Weather Team is working hard to keep you ahead of the big weather changes and help you plan your day. So stay connected this winter with Channel 4 and News Talk STL.
Hey, this is Larry Connors. Make sure you're listening later today at 6 o'clock on News Talk STL for my show, Larry Connors USA. Now, back to Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Love hearing that liner. Larry's been such a great addition to News Talk STL. And by the way, just a real quick follow-up regarding the law in Missouri. The legislature is right now in the process of hearing a proposal from Senator Mike Moon that would make it flatly illegal to do any of those hormonal, chemical, or surgical treatments on anyone under the age of 18 when it comes to the trans stuff. So when it comes to the juvenile side, the pediatric side of the so-called transgender clinic at Washington University and St. Louis Children's Hospital, the legislature is trying, well, the Republicans, the conservatives in the legislature are trying to put them out of business, and hopefully they're successful.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Moon, State Senator Mike Moon, that's introducing a bill.
Yep.
So here's what's going to happen with that bill. So there most likely there's either going to be other bills introduced or they're going to be drafting something in cooperation with the Attorney General's office to find a bill in language that works just right. Maybe it takes Mike Moon's, maybe it's Mike Moon's version, or maybe it's something else. But without some really skilled lawyers looking at the situation and figuring out what's going to work and what's not, because they're going to have to do some research on this and say, going back, let's look at some case precedent related to other things, other issues that might be relevant here. They're just going to have to craft something very strategically and make sure that they get it through. But still, I'm not entirely convinced that the Republicans are going to be able to move this forward. Maybe they will if Andrew Bailey has taken a position on this as the Attorney General, and he's one of Governor Parsons' appointees. So that might get the current leadership of the state Senate to start moving this forward, because there is this divide between Mike Moon and other conservatives and the leadership of the state Senate. That's the only thing really that might get in the way. Andrew Bailey, Governor Parson getting involved, that would definitely push this thing to the front of the agenda.
This is one of those situations where this is a no-brainer for Republicans, no-brainer for conservatives. If they cannot pull this off, I think it's fair to ask the question, well, what good is giving you a near supermajority?
See, you say it's a no-brainer, and it is. What's really terrifying, though, is when you have a Republican majority that even fails to get, not just fails to get the bill to the floor, but fails to get enough yes votes from Republicans for a bill that should be a no-brainer for Republicans. And that's what we saw last year on a transgender issue when we were trying to protect young girls playing sports with male trans athletes.
Yeah, so don't just talk the talk, Republicans. If this does not go into law, this is completely on you. All right, the other big government situation we're talking about, and this is an area where government is protecting the livelihoods of people from abuse. But we were talking a little bit earlier about Senator Josh Hawley saying, we need a federal law saying it's illegal for anybody under 16 to be on social media. And Paul and I think Stell, we all kind of agreed. We're like, that's not the federal government's lane. That's not what you should be doing. Mark's got some thoughts on that. Hey, Mark, you're on News Talk STL.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hi.
I listen to you guys every morning. You guys are great. And just want to call out a real quick thing on Senator Hawley. I like the guy. I'm a old retired conservative, but I'll give you guys kudos on calling him out about federal government control. Long story short is I do have some liberal friends, and what separates conservatives, and you guys called it out this morning, we call out our own. We want less federal government control. And what liberal friends of mine don't understand that differentiates us, and you guys brought it up this morning, the three of you, is, when a Republican's wrong, I don't stand by the party. I stand by conservatism, liberalism, less government. And the real thing that I applaud you on is this morning, I like Senator Hawley, okay? But We need less government control. Ronald Reagan said it the best. Stell quoted him earlier. We don't want people telling us what to do. And my liberal friends are just dogma, rhetoric of their party. They don't think for themselves. And I've told them this numerous times that we've got the stones to call out the good, the bad of anyone. And I just want to give you guys ultimate applause on making that point.
Hey, really appreciate that, Mark. Thanks so much for being part of the News Talk family.
We'll see you. You guys have a good day.
You do the same. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I know gets me in trouble. I mean, there's a reason that I don't get invited to a lot of GOP stuff. It's because I'm going to call out when they're wrong on stuff. And the fact of the matter is to say, well, the important thing is that we defeat the Democrats. If it comes from the R's, if it's wrong, let's talk about it amongst ourselves. No, I'm against big, unconstitutional, intrusive government, and I don't care who's pushing it, whether it's R or a D.
And I think people as a whole are really getting tired of parties just vying for power rather than actually executing what it is they say they stand for. And I believe that that's why the Republicans failed to get the red wave that they said they were going to get in November, because people want the economy. They want all that to work out. They want us to have better financial and monetary policy, but they clearly do not trust Republicans with that issue too. Why? Because Republicans, in many cases, don't do what they say they're going to do. They'll say it in order to get the votes, in order to get the majority of the House or the Senate, and then it's big wah, wah, as they start campaigning for the next election cycle and fail to do anything they said they were going to do.
Big opportunity for conservatives in the Missouri legislature in particular. Big, obviously, massive, Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill challenges on the Illinois side for Republicans because they're so outnumbered. But on the Missouri side, the conservatives have the ability to pass absolute constitutional, small government, free market, conservative legislation, and then simply go back to voters and say, we did it, we fulfilled the promise, and we're going to show you that it works. Will they do it still? That's the big question.
I'm afraid not, because to me, the entire umbrella is the uniparty. And we always see Republicans moving over and siding with Democrats on certain issues. I rarely, if ever, see a Democrat siding over onto the Republican side.
Joe Manchin does from
yes,
time to time.
Joe does,
Yep.
sure.
Kristen,
That's one.
Cinema does from time to time.
Okay, 1.5.
Yeah. So I mean, it
1.5
it does
is right,
happen, but I think what you're drawing attention to is the fact that we're looking for people who are more independent-minded, not people who get elected and then just do whatever the party tells them to do. Can I tell you about an experience in Jefferson City?
Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed is people get elected, and I'm saying this as someone who's run multiple campaigns and won and lost. I lost a campaign, but I won a lot of campaigns too. And usually the first time someone gets elected, they say, oh, thank you. Couldn't have done this without you, without you, without you. But then when they get to Jefferson City or when they get to Washington, D.C., they start thinking, well, if I'm going to stay here, I got to do what the Speaker of the House says because, man, this is where all the power is. This is how I'm going to stay here. And that's that dynamic, that shift in allegiance and loyalty. It goes from the people usually to the establishment, as we like to call it, and that's how we lose people. And there has to be a way. You have to find people who are more committed to the people and their principles that they ran on to get elected in the first place.
How do we reward those people even if it's against the establishment's wishes?
That's really hard because that's where you have activists that will beat up their own for just like falling out of line with just one issue or one vote, and it's a really hard thing to do. So if you're going to do that, you have to be willing to be hated by the establishment and sometimes by your own people, and it's a really hard thing for people that are living in the public spotlight to be willing to be hated, to do what they said they were, even if it's to do what they said they were going to do.
Somebody who consumes a lot of news, whether it is news talk radio like this, whether it is, Fox News or Newsmax or One America or Real America's Voice or whoever, somebody who really digs in and wants to hear the politicians interviewed, wants to hear the thinkers make their arguments. Somebody who does that, they're the ones who are going to be sending the letters, making the phone calls, calling into talk radio shows, making their voices heard. So many people show up at a primary election or a general election, guys, not really knowing who's on the ballot and whatever they got in the mail. Okay, Republicans, I'm generally a Republican. Republicans say this is the guy. Okay, fine. And I think there's a scourge of that, whereas the more people engage, particularly in Missouri, the more conservative the legislature would actually be.
Totally agree. 100% agree with that. I think that's one reason why we've seen an uptick in voter participation. And in those areas, from my observation, I don't know if this is the rule, but it's from my observation, you also see as people begin to engage more, voters turn out more, you see that there's a lot more people voting for conservative-minded folks.
Yeah, so the old adage of run as far to the right in the primary as you can, then run as far to the middle as you can in the general may or may not still work, because I don't know that we're as I think we're more divided, and I don't know if there are as many people in the middle, but there are still a lot of people who don't engage and just simply are low, and I don't mean this pejoratively, I really, really don't, are low information voters, meaning that they're just focused on other things.
I don't think it works as well as it used to run to the right and then run to the middle, because the left, the Democrats, have gone absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean completely, absolute, 100% certifiably insane. So you have people like Elon Musk, who at one time considered himself, on the left, and he's the one that tweeted out that image. No, the left ran away from me, and they ran far to the left. And I think that to go back to the center, people see that as a big red flag.
Well, but have they, and I think you're absolutely right, is that the left has moved so far radically. Does that mean by definition that the center has moved to the left?
I think the center, that's kind of a tricky question, because the center would necessarily have to move to the left. If you change the metrics of where the left is versus the right, if one of them goes further to the right or further to the left, the center has to change. So if you're going to run back to the center, you have to run a lot further than you had to run 10 years ago.
And then the other question is, are there still as many people in the center, or are they looking? And I think a lot of people, those people who don't consume news and politics the way that we do, I think there's a lot of people who still recognize, like, that is nuts on the left. So I don't think you have to go as far to the left to get those or appeal to them. You just have to not be crazy.
I think there's less people in the center. I think there's more people center-right these days.
I think so, too. I think, especially in the Midwest, particularly in Missouri. I think there are people center-left and center-right in Illinois who are disgusted by their government, but they're still voting on party loyalty, even though they know they're voting for somebody to kick them in the teeth. All right, 314-912-1019. Speaking of all the politics, there's now a second official candidate in the presidential race for the Republicans. Nikki Haley made her announcement on video yesterday. She's doing it at a rally today. Are you willing to shop your vote around in the primary for all the reasons we were just talking about? You tell me. We'll discuss that just ahead right here on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Get up. It's Mike Ferguson in the morning. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
For a Wednesday happy hump day, we'll have Forrest Cooper of Project 21 at 3:45. At 4:25, Congressman Jason Smith, chairman of Ways and Means.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL.
There's only one unforgivable crime in America today, and that's standing up against the left. This is Mark McCloskey, proud to join the News Talk STL team, and I plan on committing that crime every chance I get on the air and every day of our lives. And I encourage all of the listeners and all the people of America to stand up against the left, to reclaim our freedoms, and we're going to do it on this radio station and throughout the country.
Mark McCloskey on fire.
Join me on this quest to preserve our freedoms and make sure this government works for us.
Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL.
Hey, it's Mike Ferguson here. Everybody here at News Talk STL is incredibly grateful for the growth of our business during our first 18 months since we signed on the air. We appreciate the great local businesses like Clear Path Wealth Management, STL Fence Works, and Michael's Flooring that have all become advertising partners. If your business is interested in becoming part of the News Talk STL family, simply send an email to info@newstalkstl.com. Thanks for listening to News Talk STL. Welcome home.
For $1 a day, if any covered appliance breaks in your home, we guarantee to fix or replace it. All makes and models, washers, dryers, refrigerators, air conditioners, and more. Guaranteed to be fixed or replaced for $1 a day. Call the Home Service Club now for free information.
800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. 800-399-3701. That's 800-399-3701.
What if the music stopped?
If the familiar voices were silenced, if there were no breaking news updates, what if your companion and connection to your community came with a monthly fee? Don't worry, we're free local radio with you wherever you go, celebrating 100 years and looking forward to the next 100. We are broadcasters. Text radio to 52886 and let Congress know you depend on your local TV and radio stations. This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
News, analysis, opinion.
What China did was completely unacceptable and a real threat to American sovereignty.
We're a nation now that has abandoned sovereignty. We do not know the origin of any of these objects. This is News Talk STL.
Shooting down a balloon. What's gone on the last 10 days has been nothing short of craziness. It's a violation of national law. It's our airspace.
Southern border is no longer enforced. Look at how China could fly a spy balloon over our country. What's next?
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL and newstalkstl.com.
Hey, it's Joe Pags. Catch me tonight at 7 o'clock. But right now, back to more of Mike Ferguson in the morning on News Talk STL.
Okay, the worst kept secret in all of politics, at least Republican politics over the last several weeks, has been Nikki Haley is running for president. Well, does that change anything? I guess the bigger question, and Paul, this kind of goes back to piggyback on what we were just talking about, is if you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, maybe not a big R Republican, but you tend to vote in the Republican primaries because you're more conservative, excuse me, are you willing to shop your vote around at this point? Or are you saying, I know who I want, whether they're officially in or not, I know who I want, and I'm going to stick with that person no matter what?
Yeah, I haven't been, secretive about this. I like Ron DeSantis, but I also like Donald Trump for obvious reasons. I thought he did a great job. He's one of those guys, one of the only men who's ever run for president who actually did what he said he was going to do. And he did that against the odds, against all odds of both everything the Democrats and the Republicans were throwing at him. I will always, however, shop my vote around, and I am always willing to change who I want to vote for. I do not bury myself in a particular tribe. I'm more interested in the truth and the values and the principles that I'm looking for in a candidate. And if at the very last minute that changes because someone else comes on the scene and they win that argument for me, then yeah, I'll change my vote.
Yeah, when you talk about the values and the truths and the values and all the principles you just talked about, it's who's going to be able to carry those in, most ethically and obviously electably as well.
And sometimes you find you find more than one candidate who does all that for you. And then at that point, you're like, well, now strategically, who can I help win? Who's more likely to win? You don't want to use your vote for this candidate and then sabotage all the good candidates getting lost. So if you find if you find 2 or 3 candidates that are all really good, at that point, you might start thinking strategically about it. There's just so much to consider when you're getting ready to cast your vote.
Yeah. All right. Jessica Rosenthal has the update on the new look of the official presidential race.
Former South Carolina governor and U.S. ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, released a video Tuesday announcing her plan to run for president.
It's time for a new generation of leadership.
She was critical of President Biden in the video and said our foreign adversaries are on the march right now.
I don't put up with bullies. And when you kick back, it hurts them more if you're wearing heels.
She will make it official later on today in person at the Charleston Visitor Center. Former President Trump said even though Haley had said she wouldn't run if he ran, he said he told her she should follow her heart and he wished her luck. After her video release, a reporter asked Florida Governor Ron DeSantis if he'd be following suit.
Wouldn't you like to know?
Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Okay, I'm going to admit, I'm kind of a nerd about all this stuff. I love primary races, caucuses. I love that pre-nomination part of the race, just if nothing else from a sporting aspect of it, but particularly for what's left of the intellectual side of it. We used to have still this approach that everybody was in a battle of ideas, knowing that you coalesce around the nominee at some point. I don't know that we necessarily have as much of that anymore, but I love it when people get into the race, and I love contrasting and comparing the ideas.
I love it too. The only part that really ticks me off is when you look back at Biden's situation where he showed up, 5th or 6th in Iowa, and he was at the bottom of the list in the other states, and then all of a sudden Clyburn gets behind him from South Carolina and says, we're going to go ahead and take things over. We're going to put you into that slot, and we're going to make you number one. And all of a sudden, on Super Tuesday, Biden sweeps all the states. And I'm wondering, whoa, wait a minute here. What's going on? And it's stuff like that that really turns me off. But I'm with you guys. You know, I always leave it open until the end. You know what? This is another issue with mail-in voting. If you try to be fair, then why do we have mail-in voting 2 months before an election when other issues could come up, i.e. Fetterman's health issues? Stuff like that happens, and folks have already voted. We've got this thing all...
See, that's a really good point on the mail-in voting. If you say, okay, I made up my mind, I'm voting for this person, you mail in the ballot, and then you find out they kick puppies for a hobby, and you rush into the voting area saying, oh, I changed my mind. Well, no, sorry, you sent in your mail-in vote. That's the way it is.
It's like back-ass words. What are we doing?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. So, like, even in Jefferson City, we normally don't name bridges after people until they died because you don't want to name a bridge after somebody and then, oh my goodness, this person's was just arrested on a child porn raid by the FBI.
So, Kit Bond, behave yourself.
Right, really, seriously. But that's another reason why, like, you don't want to go out and vote a couple months early because so much happens. October surprises normally happen within weeks, of Election Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in addition to my geekery, just because I find the process fascinating. I mean, my minor was political science, which probably would not surprise a whole lot of people. That aspect of the campaign science is just fast. I am a sucker for all of the humble brag books that the candidates and the someday candidates put out there. I'm an absolute sucker for those. I don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. I'll buy them and read them. I really will. I've got a small, well, not small. I've got a couple shelves on my bookshelf of just those books going back to like 96. Those some of them are actually really interesting. And people you've forgotten about completely. Tim Pawlenty, remember him?
Yep.
He was the governor of Minnesota. And he had some really funny stories in his humble brag, I want to be president someday book, which obviously that didn't work out for him. But at one point he thought Jesse Ventura was going to beat him up. Like physically.
That's probably true.
Yeah, look at the folks who have come out of Minnesota with Al Franken and Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
Those guys kind of spice up the races, even though you know that, at least in my case, I knew that I would never vote for them, but they made it interesting.
They made it very, very interesting. And I'll even go a step further, and I know that a lot of people don't like this for a lot of the strategic reasons. I wish there were a viable, and I mean a viable, actually functioning other party that was completely constitutional. And I wish the argument ideally would be between conservatives and libertarians, but
I'm the exact opposite. I would like to see no party on the ballot.
Oh, interesting.
Because then you have to go with people what they're saying. Like if you didn't have any party, you didn't have any conventions, like people would have to be really open and honest about where they stand on things, and they couldn't lean back and rely on, well, I'm a Republican, and then get all these
it's interesting.
coattail issues.
I think that's a really good discussion for later this week. I'm fascinated by that. All right, Vic Porcelli coming your way here at 9:04 on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Coming up on 9 a.m. in Mid-America, welcome home.
Welcome home to St. Louis's new choice for conservative talk.
Democrats do what they do. We choose truth over facts.
News, analysis, and opinion.
A lot of Republicans, their dream is to cut Social Security, Medicare. It's your dream, but I'm going to, my veto pen, make it a nightmare.
President Biden
has to stop lying.
That's called politics.
Hunter's laptop.
Censored by Twitter.
Knowingly and willingly. This is the investigation part. Later comes the arrest part.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Stories of New Americans.
Hi, this is Ron Clutho. Join me this weekend for Stories of New Americans, where you'll hear fascinating and inspirational personal stories of people from all over the globe who now call St. Louis home. We'll take a look at the U.S. through newcomers' eyes and get insight into world history and culture, and maybe just learn a little bit more about ourselves.
Stories of New Americans with Ron Clutho. Saturday nights at 10 on News Talk STL.
In times of economic uncertainty and chaos, your money means nothing. You may not even be able to get it from